And I guess I'll do kind of setting the stage, so to speak, since I guess I'm hosting. So, good evening, everyone in posterity. The way that this came to be is I'll just hit it from my perspective. So I'm a fan of the commentary community and the drama community. I think that all things considered, while they often do focus on very silly things, they do have a penchant for being honest and critical and abrasive and annoying, which can be fun or funny when you don't like their targets. When you do like their targets, it can be frustrating and annoying and kind of abrasive. So I am a, relatively speaking, fan of Kuihman's work. I'm relatively speaking a fan of Chud Logic's work, but I also find that they are abrasive. When it comes to Miss Brianna, you know, we're obviously friends. We work on content together, and it seemed like Mr. Kuihman had a healthy chunk of criticism for me and for Miss Brianna when it came to Keffels in particular. And I think that Kuihman's content is at its best when he is summarizing arguments, saying why they're incorrect, and then basically coming up with his own insights. I think his content is at its weakest when he's just calling everybody else an idiot or a spurg or a dumbass or a retard or any variation of those words or other words that he chooses to describe. So I basically said, well, Mr. Kuihman, if you take issue with what I've said or what, you know, Miss Brianna has said, then I invite you to talk it with me. I'm not personally scared of you. I'm not personally scared of the commentary community. So if you want to have a conversation, that's fine. And then Miss Brianna also jumped into the Twitter reply section and said that she is down for the conversation as well. That has brought us to today.
Yeah. Just
okay. Well, let's get. We will have plenty of time to get into the content. I have watched the Kuihman Brianna Wu summary. I also shot it over to Brianna with some cliff notes. So we're here basically to hash it out and air it out as best we can. So does either one of you want to lead us off?
I'm good.
No, I'm easy as well. Yeah. What's the setup here? Do you want to go for me bringing stuff up, or do you guys want to bring stuff up from the video? You said you've got notes, so I don't know if you want to start off there.
Conor?
Sure. I mean, if you want me to read the main takeaways that I had from it as a topic of discussion, then we can do that.
Why don't we just go down through the list and we can just point out all the factual errors, mistaken judgments, libelous defamatory statements, and weak reasoning. Why don't we just
go for it? Sure.
All right, so let's do the first one. So the first one that I took a note on was Brianna Wu claimed to have degrees, but only shows attending a university for a decade in her transcript with no final degree.
So I did not. So let me ask you a question, Kuihman. I just want all the listeners to know you won't show your face. So do you know who David Whitford is?
Is that some Nazi guy?
No, it's not a Nazi guy. Do you know who this is?
Yeah, I think he had some association with Milo, didn't he?
No. Do you know who David Whitford is?
No, I've got no idea.
No idea whatsoever?
Nope,
Didn't
not right
look
now.
it up?
Nope.
Really? You have no idea who David Whitford is?
No, does this have any relevance to you having a degree?
Yeah, it does actually.
Okay,
so
could you explain the relevance to you having
why
a
don't
degree?
you shut up? This is my show. I'm going to talk. If you talk,
it's actually it's my show too. Actually, I'm on my stream as well. Actually, so.
Oh my God!
Okay.
Let's not.
So we're just going to.
Let's not measure it. Let's get into the information.
We'll do it. So David Whitford is a person who is a really long-standing reporter. He worked at Inc. magazine for many years, and in the middle of Gamergate, he spent, my gosh, it must have been 2 weeks following me around. This is an old school reporter, went through every single detail of my life, probably did, 6, 7 in-person interviews, got to know my husband, and literally poured through every single detail of my life for a feature in Inc. magazine. So if you're interested in a factual summary of everything that happened in my life, you probably shouldn't go to Kiwi Farms. You should go to David Whitford and read all the stuff about that there. In this piece, it talks about me not getting a degree. Why did I not get a degree? It was because in part, I left the University of Mississippi for multiple years. I lived in Jackson, Mississippi. This is when I did my game studio. But additionally, I was struggling with drug addiction and alcohol addiction for the entire time. So if you're interested in some facts about my life and the way all of this goes together, like I've talked about every bit of this completely honestly and openly before. I actually don't have anything to hide. So I would really just suggest you go read that piece. It is the most accurate thing that's been written about that. And I'm sure in that piece, it talks about how I did not get my degree, something I've never claimed to have.
That's a lie. You have claimed to have a degree.
No, I haven't.
You have. There's numerous IGN posts on the username SpaceCatGal from way before you started appearing in public under that, like as in the Gamergate public with that name. So it wasn't someone faking being you. There's plenty of IGN posts where you were claiming to have a degree that are archived on the web archive. Not
I've
just on
never.
Kiwi Farms. There's also.
We're going to go one at a time here. I'm going to mute you if you talk over me. So going one at a time, I would need to see that, in my public role for me, Brianna Wu, the person who came to be relevant, like in the public eye after Gamergate, I've been completely honest with this. Now, there was one article, to my knowledge, that came out, and I said I went to the University of Mississippi to the reporter. They interpreted that to mean that I graduated. I did not. They misquoted me at the time. And something I think you'll find is not every publication has the same level of fact checking that, say, the New York Times does, or Inc. magazine has, or the Wall Street Journal has. So if you go through that, you'll see a very consistent statement.
Well, if we go through...
Sorry, 1 second, Conor. You just lied to me again, because I actually in August of 2014, you were actually claiming on our podcast that you went back to university and finished your degree and became an investigative journalist. You actually did say that after Gamergate.
I did. I misspoke in that case.
You misspoke.
Then
Okay.
For the sake of, let's say that Brianna has this source that says, nope, I didn't say it, I phrased it this way. Kuihman says, nope, you did phrase it this way. What is your educational background to be stated clearly now?
Sure. I went to a ton of college and I didn't succeed at getting a degree for many reasons. Part of it was the drug addiction. Part of it was other stuff that I was dealing with. My family disowned me in the last 6 months of college, and I found myself homeless right after that. So
out of personal curiosity, so for instance, I did the interdisciplinary degree program, which was actually a combination of 3 minors in order to get like a major, and it was like 120 credits or so. Do you remember how many credits you got during your attendance?
I was missing, I think, a mathematics class and one other thing. So
pretty close to an associate's or pretty close to a bachelor's?
Pretty close to a bachelor's.
Okay. All right. Kuihman, do you have any other points that you want to make before we move to the next one?
No, I was never claiming that we still lied about this. I always said she stopped lying about it in 2015 after Milo showed her transcripts. Yeah. Okay.
Well, then next point was claims to be a cybersecurity expert despite not having the credentials for that title.
Sure.
She's not no experienced cybersecurity expert from what I can tell, but yeah, go for it.
Sure. As far as a policy level of expertise, I'm not claiming to.
Policy level?
Okay. You need to let me talk. So this was my congressional campaign. One of the things I ran for in my congressional campaign was taking cybersecurity very seriously. I talked to more people that I can begin to think about on cybersecurity issues. We talked about voting machines. And, you've got to understand, everyone in Congress is very, very old, and the people that serve on the committees to do cybersecurity, they just don't take it seriously. A really good example, Conor, can you help me remember, what was the bill a few years ago? Was it the SOPA Act? Can you remember that?
I can Google it.
They tried to get through, and Marsha Blackburn, who actually went to school with my mother, she was one of the people serving on the cybersecurity committee and actually tried to blame this bill, basically saying we needed to curtail First Amendment rights so people would stop stealing software. That's the level of person that is basically making this policy. So, my expertise I brought into this is I'd been a tech journalist for a long time. I'd worked as a software engineer, and I'd followed it very, very carefully as someone who was very interested in that public policy. So, is expert a little bit of political juice? Sure. But I think if you listen to me talk over a decade that I've been talking on public policy and tech, specifically my many, many, many appearances on Twit with Leo Laporte, I think most people would say I'd be a really big step up as far as setting the public policy on that. So you can make the appraisal the expert is a little too much. I would probably say that, but it's a congressional campaign.
So you're not a cybersecurity expert at all then?
I think I would form extremely good cybersecurity policy for the country.
So you're not a cybersecurity expert at all then? I'd also like to point out that last week you were saying how amazing Stardust's video on Frogan was, which included a whole section talking about how Frogan wasn't an expert because she only had a master's and 2 years experience in the field.
Sure.
By that metric, Brianna, you are an absolute horrific liar in your congressional ad when you're trying to take public office. Probably the worst time to lie that I can possibly imagine.
Okay, you can make that assessment.
Yep, I will make that assessment. You are a sick person, truly sick.
Agreement. So I'm gonna say this. If we're gonna go through this, like you're getting, I guess what we're kind of doing now for the sake of flow is I'm not Brianna, right? So this is her history. She's telling the story as it is. If you have like contradictory evidence, that's fine. And we can go back and forth on it. I think what's going to drag this down, though, is, for instance, if, Brianna's making a response, you're smugly laughing, so then you get, muted every single time. Then we listen to Brianna talk for a minute. Then you say, that's not true. And then we just repeat that like 30 times. That's probably not going to be decent content. So if possible, if you could chill on the personal shit, but more present like contradictory information or the way that you see it or something like that, that's fine by me. Or I think that would be better content.
No, I think you've seen enough Destiny content to know that it's important to interrupt someone when they start building a whole point based on lies in the first sentence. No, I think I will keep interrupting if Brianna's going to lie.
I'm not lying, dude. You've drawn the most dramatic conclusion. You're being obnoxious. You're not interested in the truth here. You're coming into this conversation with a point of view, and it's clearly drama content. I'm happy to answer these questions. We can go through it one at a time, but just don't pretend like you're not interested in truth here.
Defaming you a minute ago. I was defaming you a minute ago. Where like all of a sudden now you're falling back. I thought you were going to disprove everything I said. I thought this
so we can save this until the end, dude. But I know you've probably never read a book on communication law and how this works. But the truth is, Jesus Christ, Conor. I can't do this if I can't get a sentence out. I'm being calm. He's being a jackass. This is crazy. So I know you've probably never read a book on communication law, but when you say things about people, there's some things that protect you from defamatory lawsuits. One of the major tools is reportage. This is very, very helpful. So if I can point to something and say, I'm not saying this, I'm not claiming this, the New York Times is saying this, that is a higher level of credibility than if you were to point to, I don't know, Kiwi Farms or source something from Kiwi Farms there. So I think when you're publishing things and putting it out there and you're ignoring contradictory evidence, to be really clear, I don't have any intention of suing anyone today. But one of the reasons I won my lawsuit against Alex Jones is I was aware of these standards and I tailored my public comments to meet those standards of defamation, which is why Alex Jones was not successful. So that's what I was saying.
I didn't source Kiwi Farms for any of this stuff.
Okay.
But that's okay. It's all on the web archive. It's all in various articles written online. I actually did cite that David Whitmer article you mentioned. I didn't remember his name, but I do actually have the article in there. I have actually read that article. So I'm
it's a good piece, but it contradicts other evidence that you're putting out there.
Well, oh yeah, what does it contradict?
If you're claiming that claim to go to Ole Miss for a decade, that's not true.
You claimed it before that article came out. You claimed it before that article came out.
I didn't go to Ole Miss for a decade. I moved to Jim.
You've got
I moved to Jackson. I went to Millsaps, I think, for a year, and then I worked on my startup, and then I moved to DC. So there it is.
Okay, you were claiming to have a degree before this article came out. So this
That's not
article
true.
doesn't contradict
That's
any.
not true.
That is true. Because the degree,
Connor, can we keep going?
it was revealed.
Really
Well, hold on.
You're lying to me, Brianna, straight up.
I'm not
Because
lying.
you were
I
outed as not
can't
having a degree in
remember.
2015. This was released in 2016.
Okay, if you want to say that me as an internet anonymous person misspoke at some point, that's fine.
No,
in my public,
we established that.
in my public life, I've been extremely honest and direct with people about this. And I'm telling you right now, I did not successfully get my college degree. I would hope that most people out there would understand that I had drug addiction at the time, and my family disowned me in the very last bit of it, which would left me homeless, which was an incredibly stressful situation. You know, it's something I used to feel really guilty about. It honestly has not affected my life that much.
I think the play for trauma is very pathetic and manipulative.
I'm just telling you the truth of what happened. You don't have to believe me.
It's a desperate manipulation tactic because you've
It's
repeatedly
not a
lied to me in this
manipulation
conversation.
tactic,
I've
dude.
brought up
I'm
specific
telling you what
instances.
happened. I'm telling you what happened. Connor, can we keep the show going, man?
Well, okay, but I want to point out this dynamic because if we keep doing this, then it's going to be just as toxic
That's right.
as it is
That's
right
right.
now for the next like
Yeah.
hour.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I would borderline prefer Kuihman to kind of bring up his criticisms rather than us flowing through it, because right now,
Okay,
so far, what we've been able.
we can move on.
Hold on. I just want to. Okay, so I want to point out the formulaic dynamic. Okay, so the formulaic dynamic is I wrote down all the criticisms that were in the video. Kuihman basically got a 20-minute head start by doing the video, right? So now we're going through it and we're responding to it. And then basically what's happening is so far we have two, if I was to summarize the points that we've made so far, is that according to Kuihman, Brianna claimed to have a degree. Brianna is saying that she doesn't have a degree, but she does have a decent amount of credits in college. I don't think that's contested, at least. Then cybersecurity expert, Brianna is saying that she used that as an accolade while going through Congress because people in Congress are not particularly tech savvy. And she's been talking about tech and politics for the past decade. That's how I would summarize the Brianna point. And then Kuihman is saying, well, that's not enough. And on top of that, in a recent thing for somebody that you've allied yourself with, you kind of laughed at the fact that somebody with a master's degree isn't a expert. So that's kind of like the summary of the two perspectives so far. But we're not getting to the guts of it, I guess.
The health
get
person.
Like one back and forth without a factual and
Hold on. I want to finish what I'm saying. So to be clear, Connor, with the claims I was making about Stardust, most of what I liked about that video was the anti-Semitism. I don't think I publicly commented on the health expert thing. You know, I could understand why Frogan would say that. I thought Stardust had a good point with that, but it wasn't something I publicly commented on, just to be clear.
Okay,
well,
you didn't comment on any specific part. You just said it was an amazing video.
That's right. It was an amazing video. But the thing I found strongest was the anti-Semitism and really documenting that, to be clear.
Right.
Yeah, see,
and then
okay, go for it.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, it's counterfire. It's counterfire. You guys talk.
Well, I'm just going to keep pointing out the dynamic over and over again. So how about you go? So maybe we can get into some meat.
Yeah, sure. Would you describe Total Biscuit as a transphobic, sexist leader of harassment, Brianna?
To be really honest, I had so much trauma during Gamergate. I've never seen Total Biscuit's work. I don't think I could make an assessment on that today. For a lot of Gamergate, and Conor can back me up on this, I've talked a lot about how I didn't handle many things very well. You know, I'd handled them differently today. But I'm not familiar enough with his work to make that assessment. I think in the time he was a complete ass to me online and certainly drove a lot of harassment my way. So I think I would say that.
I believe there was one tweet where he called you a worthless hypocrite, but you actually said last year, you said when Total Biscuit died, I bit my tongue. I didn't want to say anything, but that's allowed people to whitewash a serious, horrific history of extreme harassment. That doesn't sound like someone who's just never seen the work. You're saying he has a legacy.
No. Hold on. That works exactly with what I just said. He drove a ton of harassment to my door. That's 100% true. I just said that.
With one tweet. Saying you're a hypocrite.
No, he tweeted me a ton. I remember one tweet he said, "I'm absolutely done taking anything Brianna Wu says seriously." Like it was
that's the same tweet. That's the exact same tweet I'm talking about.
Your research is just flawed here, man.
No, that's the exact same tweet I'm talking about. That's the one where Total Biscuit said, "I'm sick of pretending Brianna Wu is anything but a worthless fucking hypocrite."
Okay, well, he did drive a ton of harassment to my door, and his audience was terrible to me.
A lie that you repeated up until
it's not a lie. It is.
Yeah, he wasn't. He was not a leader of harassment. He made one tweet calling you a hypocrite. That's a total mistake.
He did a lot more than that. His audience was.
You haven't shown that.
I've already told you I didn't handle everything during Gamergate. Well,
but you've been asked for evidence on this last year when you made that tweet. You were asked for evidence again, and you were refusing to give it. And you were saying that if you just don't get it, and you're denying the trauma. That's what you were saying.
No, I'm saying that his audience drove a lot of bullshit to my door. He also went after Zoe Quinn a ton, and I think this is what you.
That's a lie.
From you know what? I'm talking my impression of things 10 years ago. I honestly don't remember the Total Biscuit stuff that well. So hold on, Kuihman, you gotta let me talk, man. I'm trying to answer your questions honestly and with integrity. If you cut me off every 4 seconds, I can't answer your questions. So what I was going to
you're not answering.
Conor, is there any worth to this, man?
Okay. So what I would say is the worth it from my perspective.
Yeah.
Is that I think that the commentary community can be abrasive, but they also can present us with facts. But I think that just because there are facts doesn't mean that these facts are mutually exclusive.
Sure.
So, for instance, if I don't know Total Biscuit, right? I wasn't huge in the Gamergate days, but as an example, if we go back to Total Biscuit's history and we check out his tweet history and we see this, that, the other, where he's talking shit about the Gamergate girls and Anita Sarkeesian sucks and Brianna Wu.
He was exceedingly progressive at the time. He was exceedingly progressive, and he did interviews
Kuihman,
with the BBC.
I have told you,
stating that nobody should be going after Zoe Quinn. They should be going after the journalists who made the reviews, if anyone. He said specifically, stay away from. What are you doing? Why are you going after Zoe Quinn? It's not her that's made an ethical violation. He was very clear, very specific with everything he said. And yet Brianna has continued until last year to mischaracterize this. It's not just that you said it during Gamergate and you've got this odd perception and you've moved on from then. No, you're repeating this and you are constantly trying to reiterate. You did it the year before as well, that his legacy was people harassing women in his name. You've constantly tried to smear this guy, both alive and dead.
Can I make my point now? And I don't want me.
Yeah, no, just let me for like 3 seconds at a time. Yeah.
It's so childish. So, you know, something that happened during Gamergate is I was traumatized. I legitimately cannot remember much of Total Biscuit. You could probably find 1,000 articles where I've talked about my blurry memory from Gamergate. So if I'm misremembering this and I was unfair to him at the time, it would not surprise me at all. I would be the first person to admit it. My honest recollection, which I'm telling you truthfully right now, is that his audience was harassing me, but I was getting so many death threats in those days. Like, I doubt I could tell one end from the other. So it's entirely possible, to be honest with you.
You notice how every time you own up to something, but okay, I didn't get my degree, but I had a lot of trauma and I was homeless. Okay, that wasn't true about Total Biscuit, but I've got a lot of trauma. Do you notice how there's never an honest acceptance of accountability or the fact you fucked up and did something wrong? It's always, there's some other terrible thing going on in my life that is causing me to act this way, so no one can be mad at me about it. Like
I didn't say no one can be mad at me. I'm telling you what
you acknowledge the fact that you have done. You did insane damage to Total Biscuit's reputation off of no evidence. You had no evidence for the claims you're making. He was a sexist.
Well, hold on. Can I ask you a question there, Kuihman? Because that, we're talking about exaggerations of harm. Are you exaggerating harm there? Did Total Biscuit suffer any consequences as a result of journalists saying that he was transphobic or aggressive or harassing?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I'm asking.
I'm pretty sure I remember a bunch of shit going down the day. Like there was, I mean, look, if you were involved in Gamergate, I would never deny this. Either side you're on, people were taking reputational damage, losing opportunities, bomb threats being called at speaking events. This was happening on both sides. So I would never deny anything like that. The point is,
well, so my question is,
my issue is more is that Total Biscuit had made one tweet about Brianna, and apparently he's a leader of harassment. Yet Brianna isn't a leader of harassment, even though she made essentially a campaign past this guy's death to continue spreading mistruths about him.
Now hold on. Let's be fair here. It is 100% accurate that I did not comment on his death when he died. That is 100%.
It's true.
Hold on, dude. I don't want to keep meeting you. Let me make my points, please. Can we please act like adults here? Even if you don't agree with my point of view, I'm going to tell you what I think, okay? So what I was going to say is with Total Biscuit, this is my genuine reaction. When he died, his wife, what was her name? He had a wife that was grieving, and I was like, I'm married. I can imagine like your spouse dying. I would not want to contribute to that. So I very, very deliberately for that entire time after he passed, just made the decision to say nothing. And I did not bring him up for years and years and years and years. In fact, I would bet a lot of money that if you're talking about, like, you put out a tweet the other day, was that a tweet I put out, or was I like responding to a question that someone asked me?
I know I didn't say the other day. I said it was about a year ago. But
okay,
yeah, sure.
But for that, I was probably responding to someone. Like I'm not trying to. And I bet a lot of money there. Maybe I'm mistaken, but I very deliberately.
You were quote tweeting Keffels, who I believe was talking about someone who had recently died, because you were talking on the topic of talking about someone's crime when they died. I think you were just adding your own story. I don't think she was talking about Total Biscuit.
Sure.
I think you brought up Total Biscuit and decided to start.
That's fair. But it had been, I mean, that was like what, 8 years after he died?
Yeah. Does it make it less wrong?
Well, I'm trying to make you understand my thought process there. You can disagree with this assessment, but this is what.
You still haven't really acknowledged
Kuihman.
Why don't you take notes, Kuihman?
I mean, I can, but we're going to sit here and just.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, you're going to sit here for 60 seconds to 90 seconds, or else she's going to mute you, and then we're going to sit here for 60 to 90 seconds anyway. So why don't you just take notes and wait for her to be done?
That's right. So with this, what had happened for literally years with Total Biscuit is I've constantly gotten a drumbeat of criticism. This really, really frustrated me for years because I don't remember if Zoe Quinn did this or not, but it was a lot of people around Gamergate, like a lot of social justice people. You see this, like they can be instinctively cruel, and they did. When he died, they completely celebrated. It was horrible to see, and I very deliberately did not participate in that. So what I'm telling you is it's been really frustrating for me. Like you're talking about damaging reputations. I've had people accuse me of glorying in Total Biscuit's death for years and years and years, and not like one random tweet 8 years later. I'm talking like constantly. So it hurts my reputation, and frankly, it's beneath the standards that I hold myself to. So that's why I was saying
that. I don't know. You said he has a horrific history of extreme harassment. You weren't just saying, "Oh, you know." I think it's really important that we all just don't say bad things about someone when they die. That's not what you were saying. You were saying the opposite. You were saying this guy was a total piece of shit, and I should have said it at the time.
So my memory, and I will completely agree with you, this could be flawed. Like you're drawing attention to something I'd assumed was true. But this is my truthful memory, is Total Biscuit, like Gamergate all unified around Total Biscuit, kind of taking him as a paragon. And he seemed to me like his audience was really, really invested in harassing me. So, that is honestly how I felt. If I did a deep dive on that today, I might come to a different conclusion, but it's honestly what I was thinking at the time.
Okay, so I would just like to acknowledge the fact that you came into this conversation talking about my research skills, but you have been repeating claims about someone for years with no research done. It's interesting.
I'm
Well,
telling
Kuihman,
you,
is
like,
that
on
a
this-
is that
yeah.
a fair characterization of the situation? If she said it like, I
Yes.
mean, I post like, hold on, real quick, just because I post a half dozen tweets or a dozen tweets per day or whatever. So is one flippant tweet about like, I used to talk shit about this guy, I think this guy's an asshole or whatever. Now that he's dead, I felt uncomfortable about talking shit, but I still think he's a dick. Is that like a harassment campaign to smear Total Biscuit's memory?
It started while he was alive, right? It started when she was at panels at some conference where she said Total Biscuit's one of the most toxic, transphobic, sexist harassers in gaming, or something to this effect. And then showed one of his tweets at a presentation about death threats, I believe, as well.
So I tell you what, like, I mean this in really good faith. If his widow wants to reach out and talk about this, I'd genuinely be interested to look at all those situations, and maybe I got it wrong back then. Yeah, I think that's fair. There's a lot of stuff. Like, let me tell you, I don't think Shu will mind me saying this story. Yeah, Shu on Head is another person that I had a ton of conflict with during Gamergate, and I think it was about a year ago. She sent me a PM going, basically, I'm really sorry about all the conflict we had. It got out of hand. And I said, oh, no, I've been meaning to do the same thing to you. It completely got out of hand. I'm sorry. And we've been friendly with each other ever since. Like, I would be extremely eager to mend bridges there if we could.
Well, it's great to hear that you've turned over a new leaf after a decade on that insane claim that you've been repeatedly saying.
I think you're
I'm
mischaracterizing.
stunned.
Okay.
I don't think I am whatsoever. That's okay.
That's fine.
So Deagle Nation, that's a good one.
Actually,
Deagle
can we go
Nation.
through Connor's list? Because that was the
We
list.
can go
I
through,
put
absolutely,
in.
we can go through Connor's list. I think Deagle Nation's on there, in fact.
All
I
right.
don't even remember.
Give me a second to pull up my list, please.
You
All
should,
right,
because it's
so-
in every appearance you've ever done, including the sci-fi Internet Ruined My Life show. It's the one where Jace Connors said he was going to street race you to death.
That guy, yeah.
Well, let's save that because that's actually one that I wouldn't mind pressing on a little bit. But so the next one that I had was claimed poverty during game making phase, but lived in Frank's uncle's house rent free, and parents were rich Republican donors.
That's from that is from the Whitmer article. That is from the Whitmer article that you lived in.
My
Frank's
parents helped pay for this. This is
No,
something
that's
my
not what anyone
parents.
said. That's not what anyone said, actually, Brianna. If you want, just Connor, do you want to repeat that?
That's what Connor. Yeah.
You want me to read that again?
Yeah. Brianna also didn't hear it. So.
Okay, so the implication was that the specific quote that I remember was eating rice and beans a shitload in order to be able to make payroll.
I did.
And claimed poverty during the game making in order to eat rice and beans to make payroll, but you actually lived in Frank's uncle's house rent free.
That's right.
And parents were rich Republican donors.
That was about the upbringing specifically. These are two sort of different claims.
So okay. I thought from Connor's comment they were related.
Yeah.
So first of all, this is something that really upsets me when people act as though my parents have anything to do with my success. I've not talked to them, I believe, since. God, when was the John Kerry election? Was that 2004? I think they disowned me around 2005. So it has been a really, really, really long time since I've talked to my parents. They've not helped me at all. And it really frustrates me when people like talk as though they may have anything to do with my success today. They didn't help buy my house. They certainly didn't help buy any of my cars. They've abandoned me.
You recognize
really,
that's totally delusional to say that people.
Hold on. It really, frankly, hurt me a lot. Did I have the advantage of growing up with really well-off parents? 100%. I think a really good example of this is me going to rehab. I went to the PEP program, which was the same place that Tiger Woods went to for his sex addiction, even back in, what year was this? 2002, I think. This was a $30,000 a month live at the hospital kind of place. That's insane privilege to be able to go there. But that doesn't mean I'm lying when I said there have been times in my life where I've really struggled with poverty. For my game studio, we were living in Frank's uncle's house rent free. The majority of everything Frank and I made was going to pay payroll. We paid Maria, we paid Amanda, we had to pay voice actors. Frank actually would get off of work because we couldn't afford a 3D modeler and did work all evening in Inventor Fusion. And then we came up with this weird pipeline to turn Inventor Fusion stuff into, from NURBS to polygonal models. So I'm not lying. That was a tremendously stressful, financial period of my life. Thank God it's so much better now.
Okay, so my issue with that is that it's in the presentation, right? Is that you'll present it as though you were super hard done by, but you actually had all of these advantages coming in from all around the outside that were set up for you, not by any work of your own, but by the circumstances of you and Frank's. I think if you looked at my comments through Gamergate, there would be a lot of acknowledging privilege. I will tell you right now, I 100% acknowledge that. I've also had some really tough stuff happen in my life that has given me a ton of resilience. And, I was looking today, I've been sober for 21 years. That didn't happen serendipitously. That takes a lot of willpower to do that. And I'm very proud of that. No one's saying you can't be proud of things in your life. My point was more about the fact you presented it as though it was all self-made. You worked from scratch. It's not quite. No,
I'm not. I would not present myself that way. I think.
Sure, that's okay. That's a disagreement presentation. I'd agree. That's probably a weaker point.
I mean, this is. I think this is something.
Well, hold on. That was almost a Kuihman concession.
Yeah.
I'll concede to the fact that it's all in framing. It's all in the framing.
Something I would say is looking at this time period of my life in retrospect, my parents really used their money to control me and to limit the things I was able to do in my life. And, it's not them disowning me was the most painful thing I ever went through. But if you look at my career, my life after that, I got married, I did a bunch of things I'm very proud of. And it's really when my life started. So I think people tend to think that those backgrounds are idyllic, and it just wasn't the reality that I have.
Okay. Still with us? All right, cool. I'm kind of skipping the smaller ones because I think it's framing. There was clubbing with Chelsea Manning. I don't think we really need to get into that unless either one of you want to.
That was just about having the Washington connections. But yeah, sure.
Right. I didn't think that would make or break this conversation.
No.
So then. Jesse Singal, I'll just be charitable to Kuihman and bring this one up. Brianna, allegedly, you criticized Jesse Singal for bad sourcing and thought that he was hypercritical of trans issues. And then Jesse Singal, in return, said, and then you also claimed that he tried to get you fired.
Please, I'm begging. Don't say single, please.
Single. So Jesse Singal. And you also claim that Jesse Singal tried to get you fired. Jesse Singal's counterclaim is that he emailed Rebellion Pack, not realizing that it was you. He did not realize that Cenk Uygur was involved at the time. So he thought that your characterization that he was trying to get Cenk Uygur to fire you from Rebellion Pack was uncharitable, to say the least.
Sure. So I know this is going to sound Weasley, but it's the truth. I've gone back and forth a lot with Katie Herzog about this. There's a really strong appearance I'm going to go on their show after I deal with my health issues this summer. And something I agreed to do there was just to calm the temperature down. I was going to not make further comments on that. I'm going to say I think it was a genuine misunderstanding. And I think when you see my appearance on that show, I think you'll see how I was acting in good faith about the information I had, and because of some of the ways the database was set up. And I realize now that Jesse was probably acting in good faith from the way he saw. The trick is I didn't understand that until I talked to Katie the other day via email. So just let us hash this out. It's going to be a future conversation.
Okay. Kuihman, you want to get
Wait,
any
but
shots
sorry,
in before we go to the next one?
Was that you're talking to Jesse Singal about this? Was that?
I think so. I expect to
Oh, okay,
after the summer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Well, part of my point in that was that you hadn't confronted him on it. So if you're confronting him on it, it's great to hear. I'll be watching.
Gotta deal with my health stuff this summer. We'll get through it.
Then this is actually the one that I think I probably care about the most. This is a strong quote, so I'll accept if it was hyperbolic from Kuihman's side. However, saw everything Keffels was doing, approved of DIY HRT, and this is an implication. So if you don't like my framing, that's totally.
Did I say approved of DIY HRT? I don't think I made that specific claim.
Then
I've ever seen Brianna necessarily say outright, "I approve of DIY HRT." I don't think I've ever seen Brianna say that. I don't think I've say that.
I don't. You can see a live media of me saying the opposite.
Then, Kuihman, just so I'm not framing you incorrectly, can you maybe articulate your position for Brianna's participation in support of Keffels?
Yeah, sure. So Brianna was repeatedly confronted with numerous discrepancies, contradictions in Keffels' story, way she was using the money, statements she'd made about how she was using the money. Each time, Brianna had a deflecting response that either said something to the effect of, "I don't care, I don't feel scammed, use the money on cocaine if you want, ha 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 ha, isn't that so funny?"
It was a joke.
Or, yeah, it could be a joke, but generally, if I had an addict friend who was an addict in the public spotlight, me personally,
do you know addicts? We have the darkest sense of humor imaginable.
Yeah, I don't. I've known addicts, and I don't generally joke about being like, "Oh, why don't you have a drink? Why don't you have a drink?" That's not generally the sort of joke I make to addicts. No.
I can say, well, that's fine.
And it's certainly not the sort of joke I would make if someone was accused of scamming $100,000 for their addiction either.
So this is, did you see my tweet the other day of basically saying, I've had enough, fuck Keffels. So this is, again, you can view this charitably or you can view this non-charitably. I got into this when I did Beckett's podcast the other day. I see a lot of myself in Keffels in the sense that, you're a really young person. She's trying to make her way in the world, dealing with addiction, the whole Kiwi Farms thing. I really saw myself in her, and I tried to be the very best friend as I could to her through all of this. And I will fully admit I have probably looked the other way for too long on this. This is a friendship I should have let lapse a long time ago. I'm a pretty loyal person, and I tend to stick by my friends. But in this case, it was a mistaken judgment. I've never defended HRT, for minors being given without a prescription, and I would just say, I don't know. I mean, is it hard for you to understand, like, sticking by someone you considered a friend?
I think you should have a bit more due diligence in the stuff you're saying. If you're making those claims in public when there's huge allegations flying around, I do think that's a problem. Actually,
I think that's fair.
That's what
I think
Hipster has been screwed on for the last year. Actually, is basically that jumping in to defend friends that don't deserve it when they're doing horrible actions. Like, I mean, you were literally saying stuff like, if you're going after Keffels, you're a useful idiot. You need to stop talking about this. This is just furthering a harassment campaign of a trans woman. That's what you were telling people when they were bringing up concerns.
Which context was that in? Which drama scandal was going on at the moment?
I believe that was off the Destiny manifesto.
Was I trying to patch things up with Destiny by then?
I think that would be a huge indictment on your character if you said the reason why I was the reason why I was deflected from Keffels is because I was not trying to patch things up with Destiny yet.
No. I'm trying to understand the time period of what was going on there. Okay. So if it was
it would have been within a year. Correct me. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like Destiny Manifesto on Keffels was probably like 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
And then I feel like PV was last year. So that would have been, I feel like that would have been probably 6 months before attempting to get that bridge rebuilt.
So this is my understanding, or at least my recollection, that when the Destiny Manifesto came out, I was quoted, I think, 3 times in it, and it was all sourcing a bunch of Kiwi Farm stuff. I don't think I've ever talked about this, but like the story of Chloe Singal, this really tragic story of a trans woman that set herself on fire, like y'all don't even know the truth of that. It is so much darker than what people even know there. Like it was a slow motion breakdown for years with her burning every single friendship and bridge that she had. So I don't know. I think in the moment immediately after watching that, I did feel like Keffels was getting unfairly piled on. And I think, as I'm telling you right now, I think that was an error in judgment. I should not have run cover for Keffels as long as I did with my reputation.
Okay, yeah, I'm just acknowledging the fact that your reasoning here isn't about the evidence or honest engagement with what was going on. It's all to do with your associations and who you're friends with.
No, that's not it at all. I've seen the way that people can create a narrative about you that just takes these facts and it arrives at a conclusion, and it just like puts all of it point by point by point by point, and it distorts your reputation. I know about this firsthand through Gamergate. Was Keffel still trying to keep Kiwi Farms offline at that point? Because that's probably what I was thinking at the time. That was an effort to undermine that work that at the moment I thought was good.
Sure, but it doesn't seem like you had a very informed opinion on Kiwi Farms either, because you only found out that they disallowed death threats and coordinated harassment the other day when you were speaking to Mutahar.
I mean, I'm sure they have a pretext for that. I'm not sure how effective that is.
Well, I mean, what do you mean how effective it is? It's about what's allowed on the site. I mean, users on a site can do anything. Users on Twitter do crazy stuff every day, but it's about what the rules of the site are.
I think this really comes down to pretext and subtext. So Destiny is a really good example. The way that he runs DGG, I've always felt that DGG gets an unfair reputation for being harassment central, because so much of the culture there is built around really trying to tamp that stuff down. Like the subreddit has that rule that drama is done in 3 days. They do downvote transphobia if something's really sexist or over the line. Even stuff I personally would allow, like there was that picture of Lav without makeup. They took that down just because they thought it was the best thing to do. I think Destiny is really proactive in trying to set a culture for DGG that lowers this level of harassment for people. In my estimation, I don't think Kiwi Farms really does stuff of that level, as this was probably my same assessment of Total Biscuit at the time. So I think if you're going to grow a community to a certain extent, you have a responsibility about how they behave. And I agree with Destiny's assessment that it's not true that you can't control things that they do. I think you actually can to some degree.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's saying that, but the point is that you've signed on to an attack that was the point of the attack was to remove.
I'm sorry, which attack? Just so I can understand.
Drop Kiwi Farms. Drop Kiwi Farms.
Yeah.
The point of that attack is to remove Cloudflare protection so that people can commit crimes against them. And your reason for agreeing with that is site culture, not because of any specific action or rule, but just site culture.
I think that this is the part of the story that you're missing. There have been so many efforts behind the scenes to take down Kiwi Farms for years, and not just by me.
That's a bad thing.
Can I finish my point, please? You can disagree, but I'm explaining to you what my thought process was. There were efforts for years. Hold on one second. To take down Kiwi Farms. There was one extremely famous celebrity at one point that actually tried to get me to join onto a mega lawsuit that he was going to file. I said no and opted out of that. I don't know where that went, just because I didn't want more heat from it. But, my thinking there is that Kiwi Farms, I think it is a hardcore doxing site. And I think that, you should meet the same level of defamation and libel laws that, like a journalist site should have to do. So I did support that at the time.
Well, you can sue someone for posting something that's a
It's
defamatory
really hard to get their IP address and hunt them down.
Sure, but that doesn't mean that you can then just start taking sites down because of the actions of a user. That's against free speech.
So I think if you look, you can look this up. I've given 100 interviews saying this about a way that my opinion has changed, and I'll repeat it here for you. So one of the things that really, I'm sorry, changed my opinion on if this, for lack of a word, illiberalism is working was Elon Musk buying Twitter. If you made a list of the people that helped Twitter set their dead naming is bannable policy, I would be on that list. I championed this for years. I helped them get the research together. I worked with the trust and safety team to basically set that policy. We worked on a lot of international angles for it to make it fair. And at the time, I was really proud of doing that. What I can see in hindsight today is there's something about not being able to dead name people that drives conservatives and transphobes really crazy in a way that literally led Elon Musk to buy Twitter and to turn it into a site that by every measure is way worse for trans people. So I'm looking at the totality of where the progressive left has gone as far as on free speech. And I think you can look at my public comments recently. I think it's gone too far. I think it's illiberal. The entire reason I started this show with Conor is I think we need to return to being able to talk about ideas with each other. So I'm not sure today, if you asked me, if I would support Drop Kiwi Farms.
After your response, can I interject, Kuihman?
Please.
I don't know if I have another response. Go for it.
Okay, so I have a question right there because I have an internal narrative and I have a perception of Brianna. I would say this really kicked into high gear since October 7th, but it seems like Brianna has experienced some things over the past couple of years that made her frustrated. Is the muted word of it, frustrated with the far left. So when she says, hey, I was proud to work with the progressives in order to shut down this form of what I viewed as hate speech at the time. However, what ended up happening was it put so much pressure on conservatives and basically people who don't like trans people. It ended up backfiring. As a result, the internet has become a worse place, almost indirectly or consequentially as a result of the work that I used to do in the past. I think that I am better served by having conversations with other people about trans issues that kind of puts my community in a better light. I kind of see someone shifting from the far left to the center. So do you see that, or do you think that's not genuine?
No, I don't think it's genuine at all. Again, Brianna even here is like completely dodged at every opportunity, like trying to backtracking some of these claims. Like the Total Biscuit stuff is just crazy. The amount of the amount of waffling on that was nuts. We still haven't gotten to Deagle Nation, which I would love to, because I like that you pretended that you didn't know what that was, but you absolutely do. That it's delusional to pretend otherwise.
No,
is this the person that got into a car accident? You guys just want to knock that out real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, so this has been your flagship example for
flagship.
Years. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
This was a weekend story, dude.
No, this was on your sci-fi episode. The internet ruined my life. This was used in your Congress ad.
Do you think like? Come on, man.
You described it in that episode. You described that car crash video as the scariest moment of your life.
It was terrifying when it happened. I was really terrified by that.
That seems quite unlikely, but regardless,
I 100% thought it was 100% real at the time. It really scared me. And something you may not know is he had been sending me explicit death threat after explicit death threat and after explicit death threat. Evidence that this person is mentally unstable is that they are a ward of the state, as I understand it, in, isn't it New Hampshire? Which is why prosecutors couldn't prosecute him for any of this, because he's not legally responsible for any of his actions. That is my recollection and my understanding.
I don't believe that to be true at all, actually.
Well, that's what they told me.
I believe that the 176-page Gamergate Files FBI report that was released actually said that they didn't prosecute because they immediately realized it was a joke upon speaking to him.
Well, hold on. You're assuming the FBI was the people that were prosecuting that, because I'm talking
No,
about
they said they
Boston.
took it.
Hold
said
on.
that-
No. You're mistaken here. I'm talking about the Boston. There are multiple levels of law enforcement that I worked with during Gamergate.
He's also not
There
a
was
ward of the state. He's in World Peace too with Sam Hyde. That's coming out
Can I
soon.
finish what I'm saying? There are multiple levels of law
lie.
enforcement that I worked with. It was Arlington PD. Then from there, that got bumped up to the prosecutors here in Massachusetts, local prosecutors, and then there was the FBI. Just because the FBI was saying one thing does not mean that's what another law enforcement agency was thinking.
Okay, they didn't prosecute because they realized it was a joke. This is all in the 176 page
I
report.
may have come to that conclusion, but I'm telling you
I believe it was
accurately.
discussed with
I'm
the prosecutor.
telling
pretty
you
sure.
accurately what local Massachusetts prosecutors told me. They don't work for the FBI.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they discussed it with prosecutors. That's in the FBI
Why would you
report.
assume that?
Because I read the article like yesterday. I'm pretty sure it's in the report that they discussed it with the prosecutors, and they didn't prosecute because it was a joke. It's nothing to do with them being a ward of the state or being an actual risk.
Genuinely.
Are we potentially talking about two different people?
I don't know. There's no chance we're talking to two different people. It's the car crash video, and he also did the one where he said he was going to exact elite justice on your soul. It's the same guy.
Yeah, that really legitimately scared me.
So Kuihman, just out of curiosity here, like if you're having schizospergs enter into your DMs and saying wild shit, like, are we supposed to presume that, you know, all of that is a joke?
No, I would generally, what I would say is that everyone gets death threats online once they're above a certain level. It's about whether death threats are credible. Now, if you looked at those death threats, they absolutely were not credible at any point because it was a very obvious skit. Most people knew it was a skit. There were BuzzFeed articles very shortly after it came out saying it was a skit. Brianna continued to use it as an example.
There were articles taking it very seriously,
saying it was a skit. There was also a sci-fi episode taking it very seriously. I'm aware there were some places taking it seriously, Brianna.
I've never seen
I don't think anyone engaging seriously actually thought it was a real threat.
Can you not understand?
It's on the level of sort of like when Sam, because I mean, this guy's $1 Million Extreme. He is associated with Sam Hyde. It's sort of like when Sam Hyde got up and said, "I'm going to kill Hassan Piker in his home." Like no one saw it as a.
Hold on.
Can I just say something here, Conor?
Yeah, and I want to push back on that real quick, but yeah, go ahead.
You're assuming at the time I knew he was associated with Sam Hyde.
I'm not assuming that. I'm saying that the comedy style.
Dude, I don't want to mute you. Can I just finish my point?
I'm just correcting your interpretation. That's fine.
You are assuming that I understood that at the time. This is what happened according to what I remember about what happened. There was a crazy person that sent me so much stuff, death threats constantly via DM. There's a person here in Massachusetts. I don't want to dead name them because they've transitioned, but he actually worked through this person to get messages to me and hype them up. So I was getting death threat. I've got guns. And then that video came to me. It did legitimately scare me at the time. I think today I would probably see that a little bit more clearly, but legitimately at the time, I was getting so many death threats constantly, rape threats. I don't know if you've read the story about what happened when my dog died and how Gamergate reacted. I had nut jobs talk about how they were going to go through every room in my house, diagramming the shootings that they were going to plan. So, like, I would just ask for a little bit of charity that my defenses were set to so high, I could not make the same analysis someone on the outside could make.
Yeah, I could even maybe grant you it in the moment. However, the thing is that very shortly after the threats, it was revealed in the public very broadly by both the FBI report and BuzzFeed news reporting. Lots of places were saying it was a joke.
FBI happened years after that.
FBI report was in 2017. BuzzFeed articles date back to 2015. If I could just finish, Conor. Sure. And you continued with this story. This has been your flagship example at every turn, even in your Congress ad, which is long past when all of this has happened. Yet you never mention that it's a joke. You never clarify that part. It's always just there was this terrifying video of these people in skull masks in a crashed car.
It was. There was also another person.
You neglect to mention the fact
hold on. You're missing a key point. The person with the skull mask was a completely different death threat.
That was Tice. They were part of the same group. It was Tice, Eli, and Jace. Yeah.
Well,
Was
hold
he
on.
the
So,
one-
so are we expecting? So, sorry, sweep time. So, we're expecting Brianna to like specifically research each individual schizo who's going after her and try to like chart them out.
Not at all. Not at all. I'm making it clear that this was all associated. They did make it clear they were associated in their videos. They called themselves Deagle
Okay.
Nation and were
I
doing
would.
Operation Woopocalypse. So they did associate themselves in their videos. It's not.
Okay, I would like to interject at least part of my perspective because I actually consider myself a fan of Sam Hyde, at least in reference to some of his work, and yet, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Sam Hyde do PEDs in order to get in shape enough in order to go box? Didn't he absolutely fuck up his opponent in that boxing ring? Wouldn't it probably be something that Sam Hyde would likely do is show up in Los Angeles in order to hang out at places that Hassan Piker hangs out at? Wouldn't it absolutely be the kind of shit that he would do where he would pretend to be schizo? And like, honestly,
So
I wouldn't be
you argue
surprised
it's
if
a
Sam
credible
Hyde would
death
fucking
threat? You're
murder
saying
this
it's a
guy.
cre-
So
you're
like,
saying it's a credible death threat. You think that was a credible death threat that Sam Hyde made?
I feel like we're at post irony here.
Okay,
like, I
right,
feel like we don't know which way is
clearly,
up.
I came in being accused of being autistic, but I'm not so sure that I'm the autistic.
No, hold on. Tell me that it wouldn't be the ultimate post-ironic joke for him to actually do it.
I mean, would I laugh if Sam Hyde killed Hassan Piker?
I mean, I would, but well, okay. So here we go. So that's kind of the point is that like you hit levels of like meta irony or post irony that nobody knows what the fuck is going on anymore. It's like Shrek or Sam Hyde or any of that shit. It hits levels of irony that you don't know which way is up anymore.
Piker. Nobody actually thought he was going to kill Hassan Piker. Nobody actually think that's going to happen. Hassan doesn't.
Okay, maybe I just dreamed about it. But anyways, the point being that like expecting somebody who's under that pressure to be able to differentiate between threats and humor, I think is an unrealistic expectation. You can say that after the fact on a prolonged timeline.
Okay. Yeah, I was about to say that. Go for it.
Oh no, I mean if you're saying after the fact on a prolonged timeline, there should be enough time to settle.
I don't believe that Brianna Jenkins thought it was threats, personally. Me personally. However, I can even concede that and then say, okay, but still, you presented the situation after the fact when this was broadly known and never mentioned the fact it was a joke. I don't think I've ever heard Brianna.
Can you concede that there are enough like creepy pieces of shit that it might all become an amalgamation of like one general trend of people saying that they're going to rape your dog and murder your?
That's exactly it,
Conor. Because Brianna specifically cites that incident a lot. And
it scared the shit.
Isn't it the most? And isn't it also the most like visceral? Skull masks, knives, personal threats. Claiming to have driven to the location, et cetera, et cetera.
You don't get to, in Brianna's Congress Act, she says that this was behavior so criminal that the FBI got involved and then flashed up images of that.
They did get involved.
Yes,
that's 100% true.
If you allow me to finish.
Sure.
You flashed up images of that situation. So if you're saying, okay, the FBI realized it was a joke and chose not to prosecute. Sorry, the FBI did choose not to prosecute because they knew it was a joke. The FBI and the prosecutors chose not to go through with it. That did happen. If you don't bring that up,
do you have that handy, by the way?
I can send you the articles on the FBI report. Yeah, sure.
Can you just send me because I would just be curious about the verbiage.
Of course. Yeah. So, fuck. What was I saying just now? If you accuse someone of criminal behavior and neglect to mention the fact that when it was investigated, they immediately realized it was a joke. Yeah, I would say that's tantamount to.
I don't think it was not funny.
That's part of the reason why I would want to see that verbiage.
But that's okay.
Okay, so I think you already mentioned this, but it's my next point, so I just want to make sure that we say it out loud. So I give you permission to do cocaine. That tweet. We're all acknowledging that that's a joke, right?
It's in humor, but the point of it is to deflect from.
It can be in poor taste. It can be after the fact.
No. You're missing.
Sure.
The employment of that joke is to deflect from allegations of her misusing the money.
See, this is the bad faith that I'm talking about, dude. This is, hold on, can I finish? Like, a hand to God, this is dark addict from, like, humor from one addict to another. That's all it is. This is the mistake. This is the mistake that you people make. You come to a conclusion and you look for evidence that supports that conclusion constantly. And it's like everything I do as a public figure is viewed through this lens, like Brianna Wu is a terrible person or a liar. I think there's actually a lot of evidence of people that know me and work with me that would tell you I'm somebody that has integrity, that I like tell the truth, that I'm a thoughtful person, I'm a kind person. Like, there are a lot of people that would have my back on that. But y'all take everything and run it through this filter. So a joke tweet to a fellow addict becomes magnified to me like running cover for a campaign. It's just crazy, man.
You were running cover because there was scam allegations going on, and your response to those allegations was to say, I give you permission to spend
I'm
all the
telling
money.
you, it was a joke.
I don't care if it's a joke. It's your
I don't
response.
care if you care. I can tell
Okay,
jokes
I'm
to
making my
friends.
point. People, okay, you're making it in public. First of all, it's a public statement. And if you're going to make a public statement,
All
I'm
right.
allowed to criticize it. And if people agree with me, then
Sure.
that's the way it goes.
Sure. But it's
I'm
this
raising my
game
point
of
to you.
seesaw where you don't show your face, you just attack people. It's a
My
really
face
lazy,
is out there on
it's
the
a
internet.
really
I'm just not on
lazy,
camera right
it's a
now.
really lazy game to play.
Can I actually read this? Because this is where I feel like we're looking at the same problem and we're coming to different conclusions, but I actually feel like it reinforces borderline both of your perspectives. So can I just read this out loud on stream?
Yeah. Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm actually going to read this. Some of it I think is okay, but all right. Anyways, the day before Halloween, FBI agents showed up to a home of a Massachusetts man linked to to dozens of rape, bomb, and death threats targeting women involved in the video game scene. They believed he was a supporter of Gamergate, the militant online movement that wants to end feminist criticism of video games. The man, whose name was kept confidential by the FBI, confessed. He told the agents that he was a tech guy, a qualified A++ coder.
I don't know if that's the right story. There's a couple of different stories in that article, I think.
Well, if you don't mind, you can say that this is color, but sorry, go ahead.
I think there are different incidents. There are different incidents.
This one has the document talking about why the FBI let them go. So your information is reinforced in another paragraph. So if you don't mind humoring me.
Yeah, go for it. I'm not sure that's the right thing. Go for it. Yeah, speak your thing.
Who played video games a lot and lived with his parents, according to a set of documents for the FBI released on its investigation into Gamergate. He told the agents that he hung out on 4chan, the notorious online image posting board that, according to the FBI documents, has a history of hostile... we can skip that. He admitted that he had mocked the women who were targets of Gamergate's threats on 4chan, calling one of them a professional victim who exaggerated the threats. Then the agents showed him one of the threatening emails. The man said he had created a new email account specifically for the purpose of sending threats to Gamergate's targets. He admitted to sending the threatening email, understood that the email looked really bad. Crucially, he also confessed that he knew it was a crime. The man understood that it was a federal crime to send a threatening communication to anyone and will never do it again, the FBI wrote. So, despite this is where we get into your point. This is where we get to your point. Yet, despite all that, an email trail, a confession, and an admission from the suspect, he knew he was breaking the law. The FBI let him go after the suspect said it was a joke. So basically, then it's that summary, which I can read if you want. But basically what happened was the FBI, they didn't say that the guy didn't commit a crime. They referred it to the Boston State's Attorney's Office, and the Boston State's Attorney's Office declined to prosecute. But I'll tell you, this is one of the problems with cyber stalking and cyber harassment, is because it's a pain in the ass, and because they're dealing with murders and all that kind of shit and drug dealing. State police oftentimes are not going to enforce a cyber stalking statute. So for me, if the FBI is saying we have a half dozen, or we have 4 people at least that we interviewed who send death and rape threats, but then they said, lol, it was a joke. And then they didn't want to waste their time on it. So they sent it to the state's attorney's office, and the state's attorney's office said they didn't want to waste their time on it. That doesn't really do anything to diminish Brianna's perception of the event.
Okay. I don't think anyone was quite I don't think I was saying that Brianna's perception of the event is determined by the FBI's. What I'm saying is that I think that there's no way a reasonable person would come to the conclusion that those threats are credible. And that the FBI also came to that conclusion because
I want to joke right now, and I want to create half a dozen accounts and just start sending you fucking death threats and rape threats, and maybe I'll visit the UK sometime. But but obviously the whole thing is we know each other, we're fucking around, we're bantering, et cetera, et cetera. But if you don't have that context and it's randos on the fucking internet.
Okay, Conor, this was also you at least watch the videos and then maybe make the statement.
I watched your video.
There's also the additional context of all the stuff that happened that you don't have access to. the stuff that happened behind the scenes, the videos they were sending me, the death threats. I can see clearly now that they were trying to amp me up and make me very reactive so they could get this kind of reaction. But it doesn't, like, that doesn't erase all the events before it. I'm telling you the truth when I said this scared me. There was my gym, like, what was it? It was Planet Fit, it was Gold's Gym. This was in Arlington, and the first person I actually hold on. No.
Like 10 minutes on this one point.
I'm going to finish my point because this is really clear.
Write it down, Kuihman.
Yeah, write it down, buddy. So when I got sent this video, my first reaction was actually to call the Arlington PD. Was it the Arlington PD? No, it was someone in the state prosecutor's office. That was my literal first reaction, to send it to them because I was so fucking scared about that. So I feel like there's this interpretation here. Like, I couldn't possibly have trauma from all this stuff, and it couldn't affect my perception of stuff.
Kuihman, did you write it down? Go.
Well, I don't have anything to say. I was just going to say, let's move on past this, because if you just keep saying,
okay,
no,
so I want to come. There's a point I want to come to, because this really reinforces what I'm talking about here, where there's a bad faith lens and an assumption. There is bad faith. And there's an assumption. There is an assumption. I would really prefer us to act like adults. There's an assumption here that there is, like, hiding facts or being dishonest. So, Conor, one of the things you said was in the video, this is from your list of stuff, Jesse Gender DMs. I agree with your goal, all of it. What I don't do is sell the radical part, right? That is in this video. So basically what Kuihman is alleging here, I would assume, is that basically I am for minors getting HRT without permission. Kuihman, is that what you basically meant in that part?
No, that's not what I meant.
I meant that what did you mean?
I'm not sure. Your wording is vague there. I don't
know.
No,
I'm just asking what you meant.
Sure.
Sure.
I'm saying, I'm explaining. Your wording is vague.
Because I'm about to show you what was there right before it, and we can see it.
Are you okay for me to just finish what I'm saying? Your wording is vague there, so I'm not entirely sure to what level you're radical in private versus public. My point was showing that you're willing to say, you're willing to make arguments that you don't necessarily believe, but you think they will achieve an end. That's the point that I'm.
Conor, is that the context of it there? Is that how he was presenting it?
So the context is basically the way that I would phrase it is, quote unquote, hiding your power level. That's the way that I would phrase it.
So let's Conor, I DM this to you. Can you put this up on screen? This is what I was actually talking to Jesse about. It's a lot.
For the sake of not interrupting the screen, I don't want to screw up the Streamlabs, but basically I see the Jesse Gender DMs. I see both of you interacting. I can verify that it's true. And
so
I can
what I'm saying here, look at what I'm talking about. Jesse is making an allegation here. And she's saying your views lead to harm for non-binary and non-medicating trans folks, not to mention stuff from Israel. And then what I'm replying to in Jesse Gender's DM is, look, this is what you don't get. I agree with your goal, all of it, meaning dignity for non-binary people and people that don't want to medically transition. I don't think they should be dehumanized. This is actually a very common accusation that's made against me, that I don't care about non-binary people. So, this is what we're talking about there. Y'all took this in bad faith or making it sound like I've got radical politics behind the scenes. I'm responding to something completely different.
That doesn't make a lot, but you engage in that same dehumanization of non-binary people, don't you?
Okay, now we're moving the flag, the goalpost.
No, I'm okay with this because this is a bullet point. So I'll say that looking at the DM, the prior DM or whatever, the term is trans liberation. That's what they're talking about. So basically, they're saying they share the goal of trans liberation. And then this was another bullet point from the video, was that Brianna is a hypocrite for sweeping for trans people, but criticizes non-binary people in DMs and shit talks them in DMs. So Kuihman, you seem eager to talk about that.
Well, yeah, I just think that would be a strange thing for you to be saying, given that even in private, you're not. It's not just that you're in public. You're saying, "Oh, we don't need to crusade for non-binary people and other kin and whatever else." You're saying in private. You're saying if you want to be treated like a woman, maybe don't look like a transvestite. That's what you're saying to people in private.
Yeah,
So that
I made
seems
some
odd to me.
really mean comments about someone with some friends, and I've apologized for that. I imagine if I looked at your DM, I'd probably find some mean comments or two.
Oh yeah, I say some heinous stuff, but I would never claim otherwise, and I would certainly never apologize for it and then get caught doing it again a month later. That's a key part as well, isn't it? And then you start threatening Ollie, the Omnipooner.
Ollie,
as well
oh
at the end.
God. Okay. See, this is another example of the bad faith. This is a perfect example. So with this nut job who has done nothing but stalk me for months now and obsess about this, what do I say to him? Like,
what does stalking
how
mean?
old? Hold on. No.
I would
we're
like
gonna
you to be
stay on
specific about that. I would like you to be very specific with that accusation.
We are going to go and I'm going to make my point and you can listen to it like a big boy. So if you grew up in the 90s, one of the most popular artists was Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg. So there's a moment, I don't know, Conor, you may know this. Is it on Snoop Dogg's album or is it Dre Day where Snoop goes, blah, 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 we can handle this like gentlemen or we can get into some gangster shit. And that's what I was quoting right there. Should I have thought about that for more than half a second, that someone that is not in their 40s is going to understand a Dr. Dre reference? Probably, but I think most people my age would understand that. Can I understand how you perceive it as a threat? Maybe, if you want to do that. But I was quoting Dr. Dre. I don't threaten people in private. I don't even know who this dude is hardly. I don't give a shit about him. I've muted him and blocked him, and we have just he's a joke. It is sad the degree to which he's obsessed with this.
So would you refer to that threat as an obvious joke that no reasonable person would see as credible?
I think that I would say, I think I said the opposite, where I can understand why someone would think that that was not the best said. And, I think
That's not
he
quite
released, dude,
not the best.
You gotta stop. You gotta stop. We're gonna be brave here. We're gonna let people make their points. I think if you look at his DMs later, you will say that I'm sorry if that made you feel uncomfortable. I think I said that to him directly. I'll say it to him again here on the show. I was pissed off at the time. I was quoting Dr. Dre, and obviously the reference was lost on him. But I think the goal here with what is his name, Pooner or whatever, it's not to it's to dig up dirt and to do exactly what you're doing, which is a smear job for social media attention. It's not a good faith exercise here. Like, he's looking for clout, and it's very obvious.
But I'm not lying though. But you've said several mistruths at least in this conversation. I don't think I've had any.
I'm not lying, man.
You got the details wrong, at least. Like I said, at least they were mistruths you were speaking, that you've been speaking for several years.
Okay, that's fine.
It just seems weird
not
to
gonna
be
lie.
in bad faith after you've been, not telling the truth.
I think that there's no one that can survive this format. If you comb through everything someone has ever said publicly, especially someone that makes as much media as I do, and is addicted to Twitter, it's really frustrating because this inevitably comes up. You could do this with anyone, point them out to be a liar or a hypocrite. It's just I don't know what to tell you. I'm a normal person. I try to speak to stuff as accurately and fairly as I can. I change my mind on things. I try to be truthful in how I represent myself. Yeah, I occasionally get stuff wrong. I mean, this should not surprise you.
Oh, no, it doesn't surprise me.
So, all right, I feel like we should back up, hit 2 points, and then honestly, I think we're probably going to hit at least the last point that I noted. There were other ones, but I don't feel like they're as relevant. This is kind of checking a box. What was the point of the DIY HRT and Bob posting pink pilling and bank robbing? So I have an inference, but I'm not going to share it. If you could do it, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I just wanted to. The reason why I like that Mutar segment is because it shows how ubiquitous and constant the posting about this was from Keffels and Bob posting. You couldn't have avoided Bob posting and Keffel was rambling about pink pilling minors. You really couldn't have. They were doing it constantly. So I just don't know how I'm supposed to believe that Brianna has all of a sudden come to this realization that, oh, this is really bad and we should call it out.
Hand to God, I have no idea who Bob Posting was before that video. I've never seen Keffels talk about this stuff to my recollection.
Did you ever look at the Destiny Manifesto?
Yeah, I watched it 3 times.
That she's gone over extensively in that manifesto, I believe.
Yeah,
with the bank robbing or the pink pilling?
No, not the bank robbing. The pink pill, the Bob posted
the pink pilling stuff. But your statement was I had to have seen her talking about that stuff, right? And I just didn't.
No. My issue there was that you just told me you had no idea who she was, but now you've said you have seen the Destiny Manifesto and you know that she was.
I'm telling you, Bob Posting, I had not understood that and put those links together until I was talking to Mudahar the other day. I watch a ton of YouTube content, man.
Okay.
So,
look, the bottom line is you're trying to point out this hypocrisy where, like, I'm supposedly like supporting HRT for minors, and I just don't.
I'm not saying you were supporting it. I'm saying that it was a warning sign that took you off the camera.
Kuihman, you got to stop. You got to act like an adult, man. This is embarrassing for you. You could literally, if you're doing a good faith analysis, trying to find out, does Brianna support HRT for minors? You could go look at my public statements on this over years, and you would find example after example after example of me not doing this. I have not supported DIY hormones for a really, really, really long time. So it's like you go to look for this evidence that reaches the conclusion that Brianna Wu is a hypocrite or a liar, and you ignore all these public statements. And it's fundamentally not an exercise in honesty.
Okay, I can say I'm against murder, but then if one of my friends kills someone and I keep helping them get jobs and connections, you would probably say that, like, I'm being permissive of that person killing someone, right?
So the stuff in the Destiny Manifesto, as I remember it, I remember watching it and give me some goodwill here because I'm trying to remember a video that came out 2 years ago. But I remember thinking at the time that I didn't think it was that conclusive, or I didn't feel like it was the strongest argument for many reasons. The biggest one being I didn't think that Destiny drew the line between the stuff that was happening on whatever that site was and Keffels herself. And I remember, like, the connection seemed to me that Keffels wrote a check to basically keep a website in business, and Destiny was attributing everything that happened on that website to Keffels, like, personally cheerleading it. And as someone who has funded a lot of different things over my career, I just don't look at everything that granular. So I didn't find it compelling. What I did find about the Mudahar video is he drew the lines, and then he's drawing the lines with people I know, like Maya. So it was a much stronger case. So I evaluated that in different terms there. And if you look at the Beckett video, you can see me saying over and over and over again, I do not support that with Keffels.
Yeah, so just a couple of things there. First of all, those lines were drawn, aside from the Maya thing, which I'll get back to in a second.
Sure.
The lines were drawn by Destiny. Keffels had a banner ad on her site for a very long time that was for DIY HRT, and they had a bot command in chat that would spam out adverts for DIY HRT. And it was widely known that there was a partnership, not just a check, but a partnership between Keffels and the DIY HRT stuff. The Maya thing, it's weird that you bring that up and say that's why you changed your mind, because the other day you were saying that was the weakest part of Mutahar's video and that you shouldn't take the things that Maya was posting seriously. So now that seems odd to me.
No, we're talking about two different things here. We're talking, Mudahar was talking in his video about, I was giving a critique about the culture of how he's taking everything. It's actually very similar to the Keffels like addiction thing, where like this dry comment between people is interpreted as like deadly serious. It's just wry humor between friends. The thing I'm telling you with Maya is when I rewatched that video after that appearance and looked at what Maya had said about her levels being off, and then she went to a doctor later, that because it's someone I know, I can judge that and go, okay, I know Maya. She's probably telling the truth here. This is not some anonymous account here. This is really credible. So does that make sense to you that I had a different assessment there because of it?
Not really. No, I mean, the evidence was always there. The Maya stuff, I can understand. Maybe you're like, oh, it personally affected someone I know, so now I care. But the evidence,
it's a credibility issue. It's not that I care. It's the credibility. I don't know what the
credibility is. The evidence was there. Sure. It was laid out clearly. I'm not.
The difference here, because there's all kinds of anonymous users on the internet, and I can't always take those claims seriously. But if Mudahar is putting something in the video of someone taking sites from, what is it called? Something labs, and their levels aren't right, and it's someone I actually know, that gives me a different assessment of the credibility of those claims.
Okay,
Kanoko Pharmaceuticals.
That was covered in Destiny's manifesto as well. I'm really not seeing what the evidence is that Mood presented that you hadn't seen already. But that's okay.
My assessment would be that the first time that you saw like Destiny's manifesto or whatever, I don't think you were trying to rebuild the bridge, at least timeline wise.
Yeah, I was pretty angry at Destiny. Hold on, can I just explain my mindset? I was really angry at Destiny there. I've never talked to him about this, but the Chloe Singal stuff, I was really frustrated that made it in there just because there is such a different behind the scenes story. Yeah, I don't think he's a bad person to have added it. Like he's saying stuff that's factually true, but I mean, it's someone I know that died in a really, really, really violent, bloody way. And I don't know. I was definitely more Team Keffels back then when I was watching it, so I probably discounted it more than I should have.
Yeah, I mean, this checks out with sort of what I'm saying about you, is that you're making decisions and statements based on your connections and not based on any actual engagement with the subject.
I think I've engaged pretty. Yeah.
But no, you just told me that you didn't engage with the manifesto properly.
Well, hold on. Okay, let me. All right. I've only talked like 1% of the time, so all of y'all are just going to have to indulge me.
Fair.
I have been doing a show called Too Long Didn't Watch, where I'm watching old debates, and the way that I remember a debate was Sargon of Akkad got blown the fuck out by Destiny. Because he just kept repeating the same argument over and over again. That was my memory of this debate. I'm watching it again, and I'm taking notes. And as I'm taking notes, I'm seeing Sargon make half a dozen points that didn't even register with me at the time. And the reason why is because at the time, I was emotionally biased towards Destiny's side instead of trying to view it objectively. And I think we all consume content in a slanted way, where our relationships basically color the way that we perceive things. So if what it took was somebody I know is being personally affected by this, and on top of that, the person who's the subject tried to backstab me, and as a result, I'm analyzing this information more objectively, I don't think that's like a specific character flaw to Brianna. I think that's how most humans process information.
I think that if at a certain point when the stakes are so high that it's $100,000 that has probably been scammed out of the trans community, out of probably people who are pretty poor.
In a meme, money. It's 60,000, but yeah, continue. Sorry.
Yeah, whatever.
I'm mostly joking.
It's all a scam because it's built off of a lie in the first place, Conor, because it wasn't Kiwi Farms that did it. Okay, so it's all a scam, actually.
But Keffels allegedly didn't know that it wasn't Kiwi Farms at the time of the swatting.
That's
allegedly.
I don't think that's true. I thought she admitted that she did know, but she decided to go after
the quote was she didn't know until after the campaign had already started, and she didn't think that there was enough momentum to go after Docspin.
Throwing me off of what I was going to say now.
My bad.
Well, what did you just talk about? Oh, sorry, that's it. Sorry, the stakes are higher when you're a public-facing activist with a large following who's got a lot of trust from left-wing communities, and you're vouching for a fundraiser.
So this is what I think anyone. Hold on, just 1 second, Conor. I think anyone, like, this has basically been the last 2 years of my life, right? So I started off really not liking Destiny, like completely hating him. We got off in a huge public Twitter feud at one point. and me really siding with Keffels, partially because Kiwi Farms had gone after me so hard, right? After that, I started watching a lot of Destiny's content, and I start going, oh, this guy's actually extremely talented. I really like the way he's talking about this stuff here. And, I got to be friends with Kyla. And, slowly, like, I built this bridge with DGG. And to be really honest, I think he's kind of converted me over to that worldview, right? I think you can see this in my public actions. I'm a lot more pro free speech than I probably was 2 years ago. And I can look back at the, like, Keffel's Destiny fight here, and I understand a lot of the things that Keffels did, like, were really out of bounds now. Like, there was a lot of context that I didn't understand back then, like her getting his Wikipedia edited with sexual misconduct allegations. So I think if you look at the totality of where I've gone for the last 2 years, from starting in this place where I'm instinctively on Keffel's side, to building this bridge with DGG, making a very hard break with the progressive left on October 7th, which has been extremely painful for my career, and to where I am today, where I'm doing stuff like trigonometry, I think there's a very consistent pattern of shift here. And I think there's so much evidence there that this is in good faith. It is what I genuinely think. My opinions have genuinely changed. I just think it's cynicism to not see that.
That I have a point that I want to make off the piggyback, and then I want to let Kuihman go, and then I want to make the final point. And we're actually hitting 90 minutes. We agreed to be together for an hour. Kuihman, I know that I said that I would hang out with your Spurgs, but it turns out I have another commitment at 8:30 p.m. So if your callers want to talk to me another day, I'm happy to do it, but probably not tonight. And then what I wanted to say is Kuihman has an at-home advantage. This is part of the reason why I like the cynicism of the commentary community, is that in politics, oftentimes what politics is building relationships, building bridges, trying to get people who have money, clout, and influence to share goals, to work together towards a common goal. And that's obviously going to bias you when you're a part of a tribe. Part of what I think is valuable about commentary is the fact that they really don't have a tribe. They're kind of a bunch of fucking piranha waiting at the bottom of the fucking lake, waiting to rip you to fucking shreds, because at the end of the day, they're there for that. Not necessarily building a tribe and pushing in the same direction. Kuihman, I want to let you go, and then I want to bring up the final point that I had kind of as a closing out.
Let me go on what I don't even remember what was being said before you gave that.
If you have any response to Brianna or me for the past minute, or I can go into the last spot.
Yeah, I would just like to see the change in behavior and the addressing of the mistruths that have been spread over many years would be great, but I don't think that's going to happen. Personally, well,
this might allow you to repeat yourself in a second. Then, the kind of final closeout was: don't let Brianna placate you with niceties and talk about bridge building, considering her history. The next comment was: watched and supported every terrible action Keffels did. I don't think we should take that comment, because we basically just moved past that comment. But you're saying that this change is not genuine. So, What I would say is, Brianna, we're hitting. Sorry, go ahead. No,
go for it. Sorry, go.
What I was going to say is, we agreed to 60 minutes. We've been here for 90. I have an engagement at 8:30. I think this was sufficiently, we moved through all the points and addressed them. Maybe not to everybody's satisfaction, but we did address them. So, do you have anything that you want to talk about in reference to maybe your evolution over the past year or two, and whether or not it's genuine? I think you just did, but if you want to do it again,
I think people out there can look at my public statements and make their own their own conclusion. Again, I will just say there's no person, no matter how honest, that can survive this playbook. If you come through everything someone has ever said and you look at it cynically and you take it in bad faith, you're going to find inconsistencies. It's exactly what has happened here. Talk to the people that know me. I think if you're watching a show right now, Conor's someone that has a lot of integrity. We get along because we share a worldview. Look at the people that I work with on my team. Look at my friends, right? Yeah, I'm not someone who gets everything right, but I think the fact that I am willing to go up against my own side, I actually think that speaks very strongly for my character. And people can make their own assessment about that.
Mr. Kuihman, do you kind of want to give a final thoughts, final criticisms?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's not about whether you've made mistakes or fucked up over the years, or if you can point out little hypocrisies. You've been quite exceptionally dishonest. You were saying earlier that you didn't claim to have a degree after you were public facing, and that wasn't true. You pretend you didn't know what Jace Connors was all about. You have, sorry, what the Total Biscuit thing? You were waffling around that for a very long time. I just don't.
That's not waffling.
Disagree. I just don't see the change here. I don't see the accountability. I don't see the recognition of the bad shit you've done at all. I think you are just constantly throwing out excuses and bring up, oh, but my life was really hard at the time. But I understand that I lied about that, but my life was really hard at the time.
Didn't lie about anything.
I mean, you can say that. You knew
okay.
You didn't have a.
I have a question. I have a question for you. Did you put out the? You might have answered this already. Did you put out the 20-minute commentary on Brianna today, half expecting her to get pissed off and not show up?
No. I messaged you specifically because I was 100% confirming that she would, regardless of what happened. My plan initially was to drop it afterwards, but then I was like, I didn't have a video go out today, and so I wanted to make sure that I had something go up earlier in the day.
Okay, all right. I'll save my.
Confront you on the points first, and then the video is going to come out. But yeah.
Okay, I'll save my schizo conspiracy theories to myself then. Anyways, all right. Well, I actually want to thank Brianna because obviously getting grilled by commentary isn't fun. I want to thank Kuihman for his horrible, aggressive autism that is, a useful but dangerous tool. And then where can people find you, Kuihman? Even though I think you're doing pretty good tonight. So.
Yeah, twitter.com/Kuihman, or x.com/Kuihman, discord.gg/Kuihman, youtube.com/Kuihman live.
Okay. Does anybody want to say anything else before we kind of dip out?
I'm good.
All right. Goodbye, Kuihman. I'm going to kick you out. And then Brianna, if you want to hang out for a second.
Sounds good.
Catch you later.
Bye. All right. How do you feel after 90 minutes of grilling?
Tired. It's just a continuation of the same old Gamergate stuff.
Well, I'll share with my perspective. So I would say that it was uncomfortable, especially in the beginning, because I think he was coming in hyper aggressive. But I think that's part of the reason why I value the commentary community is because they are aggressive with their perspectives and they kind of don't back down. That being said, I do feel like some of the things that were maybe said hyperbolically in his video, he did kind of inject a level of nuance here that was not present in the video. So for instance, I don't think that he would say that you watched and supported every terrible action Keffels did. That was a quote from the end of it. It seemed like he was doing guilt by association for DIY HRT and Bob posting pink pilling and bank robbing. That was in the middle of the video. I don't think that he thinks that you condone bank robbing, pink pilling, or DIY HRT. So I think that's a good delineation. He did admit that I give you permission to do cocaine is a joke. That was a refreshing statement. And then I'm trying to think of what else. Oh yeah, and then also in reference to you having rich Republican parents or whatever, he did kind of admit that that wasn't like the strongest evidence that like you were. He basically said that that was a problem in framing, not necessarily like, oh, you had a silver spoon the entire time that you were alive.
Yeah.
So those were the kind of nuances that were missing from the criticism video that I'm happy kind of came out in this conversation. So any thoughts?
It's going to be the exact same thought. It's just no one can survive this, right? If I were fundamentally a dishonest person, there would be a billion worse scandals that he could point to than, you misstated your education on a message board anonymously years before you were a public figure, right? Like I really do try to be honest and direct. And it's really a challenge, Conor, because I've got so many people attacking me all the time. So I don't know why anyone wants to be a public figure. You deal with this bullshit.
Well, I think what we'll do going forward is if somebody's like, "Oh, Brianna, woo, this, that, the other," then we'll be like, "Listen, we did the Kuihman grilling. All right, we hung out with Kuihman. Commentary's most powerful autist. So as a result, if you want to see that, then you need to go there and just watch that VOD." And then I think next week we'll just be getting back into the content that we regularly do. I saw Kuihman talking shit in a video. I wanted to say, hey, if you need to talk shit to my face, let's do that. And then that's what kind of brought this about. Yeah. So anything to say to the... I do have an engagement at 8:30. Obviously, we would normally run for 2 hours. We're actually about to hit that anyways. We're at like an hour and 40 minutes right now.
So this is going to be our last show for a while. I've got surgery next week. It's going to knock me off commission for
the 5th. Yeah. The 5th and the 12th, we have Stardust and I believe Fairy Queen.
That's right.
Stardust and Fairy Queen. So I don't want anybody creating conspiracy theories. This was already planned in advance. The reason why I had those names on the top of my head is because we already discussed this. Brianna is going to take care of herself. That's right. She's going to come back in a few weeks in order to do the regular content, and we're going to hang out with Stardust and Fairy Queen in the meantime.
So I'm hoping the 2 weeks out, I might be well enough to do this, but it's going to be a really rough summer for me. It's going to be a lot of recovery. So wish me luck.
I absolutely will. I'll say, I know not everybody's religious, but I'll say some prayers for you.
I will never say no to prayers. So thank you so much, Conor.
Okay. All right. And then are you out for the night?
I'll hang out if there's stuff to go over. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we still have 70 people hanging out with us cross-platform. Does anybody have any questions or concerns for us that you want us to address before we go? Donations are always welcome. I'm sorry for subjecting y'all to that autism, but again, I just feel like sometimes the best policy is to charge straight into the maw of the beast and just, let whatever happens. So Old Man Landre says, thanks for robbing me of all that time. You're welcome, Old Man Landre. Appreciate you. Arm Slave Slayer says, when will you stop sweeping? Never, because we hung out for 2 hours. I moderated a little bit. I asked for Kuihman to clarify his points. I asked for Brianna to clarify her points. I felt like they did great. So no, this was the perfect amount of sweeping where we got to the information that we needed to get to. Azurai says dongus. That is not a question, but it is an interesting word. All right, ladies and gentlemen. All right,
hold on. Here's a comment here. Total Biscuit was a total stand-up guy. Everyone who was familiar with him loved him. I completely, maybe I got this wrong during the Gamergate era. I'll take a look at it at some point, or at least I'll try to. But to have a lot more time to do stuff like this. So I don't know. I guess it was so hyperbolic in that era. Like everything was just supercharged, and there's just so many things I would do differently if I did it again today. But I'm also 10 years older.
And the reason why I'm I think President Sunday prefers the term extend charity rather than charitable. For some reason, he doesn't like the word charitable, even though I Googled it and it's a word in the dictionary. So the reason why I would extend charity to that concept is, for instance, in the military and law enforcement, when you're dealing with the unknown, with like the war on terror or whatever, like IEDs and EFPs and snipers and general insurgent threats, they all become this amorphous, threatening other on the other side of the world. And then when you're close, even if you're in a relatively secure position, you're going to have anxiety about being in proximity to those threats. Yeah. And then same thing with law enforcement. What I actually found really weird about law enforcement is when you're geared up and you're ready to go and you got your armor and you got your pistol and you got your training and you're in the moment, you don't have that much anxiety. But when you're separated from it a little bit, when you're kind of like you're off duty or you're at home or, you don't have your gear on or whatever, then you have increased anxiety about what could go wrong. Yeah. And so as a result, threats kind of become this amorphous possibility. Yeah. And so I kind of imagine myself in your shoes. Even if there were half a dozen to a dozen people, let's just say like a few dozen people, because obviously your profile was pretty big at that time. let's say there was a few dozen people who were sending me direct messages saying like, I know what your house looks like. I know the layout of it. I'm going to kill your dog. I'm going to rape you. I'm going to murder your husband. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Even if I found
the day. Yeah.
right. And even if I found out that 2 of the 12 were joking, that still leaves the other 10 potential psychos who are stalking and harassing me and cyberbullying and all that kind of crap. And so as a result, through that mindset, I can deeply empathize with like kind of having this amorphous threat out there that kind of amalgamates into like a single thing known as Gamergate.
Yeah, I think people also need to remember death threats were a lot more novel as a tactic 10 years ago. Like the reason this got so much press is because it was shocking for just some chick in the game industry to get this level of hate. It was kind of the organized harassment of the time. So, you know, it's frustrating because, like, listening to Kuihman, he seems to assume that I've gone through and read the FBI report and I've relooked at all of this stuff. And the opposite is true. I have very deliberately tried to stay away from Gamergate. I don't take interviews on Gamergate. People ask me about it. And if you look, I try to move past it as quick as I fucking can because I don't want to talk about it anymore. So, you know, there's like assuming this level of intentionality when it's more like there was this fucked up thing that happened to me and I'm not proud of how I handled every part of it, but I was acting in good faith for how I reacted at the time, if that makes sense.
Yeah, not only does it make sense, but basically I think this is like an experience thing. So Kuihman, I think he's doing quite well. I think he probably will be a commentary mainstay as long as he keeps doing what he's doing. But what's going to come with that is a certain amount of size. And with that size is going to come experience. And that experience is going to come through negative social interactions with schizoids. And since he particularly attracts schizoids, he might eventually have somebody who is harassing him in a way that a simple block doesn't fix.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of thing that only comes with, you know, one of the critiques that they levied your way was that you had the DIY HRT directory affect somebody that you personally knew, and as a result, you changed your position on it. Not that you knew beforehand. I'm just saying that was, you know, the allegation. Well, sure. Oftentimes it takes either personal experience or an event to affect somebody that you know and love and care about for you to kind of empathize with people who are more in the situation.
It was more of I'm just tired of covering for Clara, to be really honest with you. And the thing about Clara is it's really a one-way street. She asks things of you and she doesn't repay that loyalty back. She never calls you to check in when you're going through some stuff. She never asks if she's okay. She doesn't run defense in the same way. It's very much a take kind of relationship. And I think that for a long time, because I am so much older than she is, you know, I've just been like, you know, people her age are self-involved. That's fine. I'll just let it go. You know, she's dealing with some stuff. And it just really led me to look the other way on things long past the point I should have. And, you know, looking back at this, when people I really trust, like Kyla, were telling me like, no, this is kind of a bad person, I should have been more able to hear her when she was saying that.
Well, and you also have to be wary of that tribalist mindset anyways, because sometimes people you know, a lot of people talk about the term sweeping, but while
I actually don't know what this means entirely.
So it's going back to sweeping dirt under the rug, basically covering somebody's baloney for them. So, you know, that's the way that it's being used, is like when you make excuses or defenses or apologia for somebody else, you're sweeping for them, basically. And with what I would say, though, the danger of online politics and maybe politics in general is sometimes when somebody is encouraging you to no longer defend an ally, it's because they want you to increase your allyship with their tribe. Yeah. And so it's not this like self-sacrificial motivation to, oh, I love you so much and you're such a dear and good friend and I'm looking out for your best interest and I just want you to do well. Nah, sometimes they're trying to break your tribal alliance with a friend in order to gain clout, influence, time, attention, money in a different direction. So that's actually in the world of politics and in the world of online politics.
I think that's really fair. I want to hit this point head on.
I'm sorry.
No. This point drives me crazy. And going back to Destiny's original manifesto, this drove me crazy in there too. So bathtub HRT, it kind of conjures up this image of someone like cooking estrogen in their bathtub. And I don't know if you've ever spent any time in a chemical lab, but there's a term called like a bath, and it's part of a process you use while doing chemistry. So it's like, this is just something people keep saying, and it's a complete misunderstanding of how.
But the reason why that description stuck though is because of Otokonoko Pharmaceuticals. It's because there was a hair in there, and where do you find hair? You find it in a bath, in a drain.
Fair.
And so as a result, that like mental imagery, even if you correct it and you're like, hey, no, this is actually like a chemical process, they're not actually manufacturing it in bathtubs, it still sticks. So it's going to be something that I think the safe recommendation is, you got to follow the doctors, you got to follow the scientists, you got to follow the policymakers, you got to follow the families, and we have to make the best decision possible for all involved stakeholders, not just a single tribe.
Fair enough. All right, I want to keep saying in the comments, because I'm going to go through here and mention this. Literally mentions Gamergate within 5 minutes of every interview. Blah blah blah. Okay. So you may not know this. So first of all, I do a lot more media, I think, than Zoe Quinn and Anita Sarkeesian do, just because my job is a lot more public facing. They clearly wanted to move out of the public eye, so that's part of it. And you may not know this, but when you agree to do interviews, there are conversations ahead of time about what the subject is going to be on. And universally, I could show you 100 emails that I've gotten where it's like, I want to talk to you about Gamergate. I want to talk to you about Gamergate. So the strategy I have figured out is to, I just say no if the entire interview is about Gamergate. If I can touch on it in the first few minutes and then shift the conversation to something else, that is universally what I do. I have nothing new to say about Gamergate. I don't want to be known as it. I'm very deliberately trying to do work right now that puts me in a different direction. So I think this is, it's just not a fair comment.
Okay. We also have another person who's very upset. So what he wants to make clear on this stream, we need to make it clear for you and for everyone at home, okay? That way we're not sweeping dirt under the rug. It's associated with prohibition creation of liquor, which people used to do with gin, and some people in chat are saying is with whiskey. So because of prohibition, people made alcohol in their bathtubs, which is seen as a parallel to the bathtub estrogen. Thank you, Arm Slave Slayer. Have I earned my gold sticker yet? Am I not sweeping? Can I have my gold sticker? Okay.
I mean, that's but I think it's not drawing an analogy. It's making it sound like it is literally making estrogen in your bathtub, which I just don't think is true. So here's one. Here's an idea. Don't self-insert into drama. Don't announce blah, 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 to harass yourself on stream. So we've covered this. I did not harass myself on Steam. Even Short Fat Otaku has looked into this. He thinks I'm being truthful about this. You're just reading that in bad faith. As far as the self-insert in drama, can y'all really not understand that a lot of women during Gamergate who I cared about were being targeted by these moms? I mean, I had righteous anger back then at what was happening to people I cared about getting run out of the industry. So, I'm sure there's another timeline where I did what, Kara Ellison did and just pretended the harassment didn't exist and ignored what was happening to friends. But I was really angry. And I think if you look at my personality, I tend to take stakes on things I care about, like October 7th. So, this is who I am. Is it always lead to a good decision for my family? No, but it's probably not going to change either.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, hold on, sorry. Arm Slave Slayer says, "I'll give you a gold star when I don't have to twist your arm for basic corrections." Oh my god! Like seriously, can we take the temperature down a little bit? Because seriously, like. So I came up with the association between bathtubs and hair. That's a connection that I was making for why Odo Kanoko Pharmaceuticals pictures were being stuck with it, and people were, accusing Brianna of being descriptive as sweeping. And then as soon as you tell me about bootleg bathtub associated liquor, I say about it. So I don't know what you want from me. What about Brolos? I don't know who Brolos is.
Oh my god, this is the bad faith stupid Twitter machine. So Brolos is a Twitter account I made. I don't even remember this. It was some Twitter account I made to mock Gamergators. And I'm literally just putting out stupid like mocking of Gamergators as I understand it. And it quickly became apparent to me people were going to by like parodying Gamergators, people were going to accuse me of like harassing, like being responsible for my own harassment. So I deleted it. This is just my like sarcastic sense of humor. Like, give me a break. Come on.
All right. Well, we're getting a hate raid allegedly. I don't know how many people are popping in, but hello, haters. And then Big Hoth for 10 pounds says, "I'm still trying to figure out how a Humegalol like food shops is the biggest existential threat, but we can't criticize Vosh because Trump will get a second term." I can explain that. I've explained it once. I'll explain it again. So when it came to food shops during that drama, what I saw at the time was a bunch of commentary people. It was actually Kuihman, to be honest. Kuihman was milking food shops and was basically, I would say, borderline propping up her content because he thought it was funny that she would get in debates and then admit to, being a lowercase p word. And then Chud said that he wouldn't judge anybody for consuming her content, and he didn't care, and he didn't care if anybody associated with her. I think that if you are going to be an out and out lolicon, then you should, relatively speaking, be persona non grata. People shouldn't be collaborating with you. People shouldn't be promoting you. People shouldn't be saying that like you're awesome, you're great. So that's why I had the criticism for Chud that I did. That's why I went after it. When it comes to Vosh, everybody and their fucking mom annihilated Vosh from orbit with nukes for the better part of 2 months. I still have Nick DiOrio and Chud Logic and Kuihman drama episodes loaded up from 2 months ago, talking about the Vosh drama and the tipster and the Keffels fallout. So acting like, that was swept. It was not swept. I just didn't personally like blow it up any harder than it was. And the truth is, this is my truth. I'm speaking for myself and myself only. Most of you twats are useless. You don't like, and by that I just mean drama farmers. They're useless. They don't actually do anything. They don't achieve anything in the real world. Vosh, God help him, is somebody who drives people to do things. So if he can get human beings to canvas or to phone bank or to have real political electoral stuff, then you have to plug your nose a little fucking bit, and then you have to let him do the shit that will have electoral result. And by the way, before this is like deemed hypocritical or whatever, this is what people are doing with Biden, despite the fact that he's fucking ancient and his son is a drug addict and an asshole and probably like laundered money. This is what people are doing with Trump, despite the fact that he did January 6th. He tried to steal the fucking election. He probably grabbed a bunch of women inappropriately back in the 1980s. He was boys with Jeffrey Epstein. He probably banged a bunch of underage prostitutes. So before you're like, Conor, you're just pinching your nose in order to go after a political result. It's like, no shit. That's politics.
Yeah.
So
I think that's well said. Okay, so Bug Squander is here, which is the list.
Bug Squander is like Kuihman's strongest soldier, so don't let him get you riled up too strongly.
No, I don't mind going through these. You're doing seminars related to women in gaming in the run-up to Gamergate. This is like, what is this supposed to be? Yeah, I am a feminist, And this should not surprise you. Yes, I did stuff like this for networking, and because I think that women in gaming don't really get a fair shot. That should not surprise you at all. I don't know why this is a criticism.
Origin of Logo says, Connor, do you need me to come on and annihilate you again on this gross double standard? No, you don't have to, because your boy's about to catch a couple of felonies. So don't worry about it. No big deal. It's fine.
Oh my goodness. All right, hold on. Just the fact that the week before you talked about what you were due, I don't understand what this point is. I opened up, so I'm trying to remember the Bro Lols account. It was just a silly, like, parody account because
he's saying it's a gay op. That's what he's saying.
What is a gay op?
Gay op is like a psychological operation, but it's gay and not gay like homosexual. It's like lame. Okay. But basically it's a psyop. So you created bro lols so you could fake harassment to yourself, so you could create hubbub around yourself, so you can exaggerate and hyperbolize your position. That's the insinuation.
Look, everyone there could see the avalanche of threats that I got during that day. So if I had faked that number of death threats to myself, I guarantee you I would have gotten caught. So yeah, this is just, it's silly. Like, you can't, what are you supposed to do with this stuff, Connor? Like, you can tell the truth. It's just like stream.
You keep telling the truth.
I mean,
you keep telling the truth. Yeah, as painful as it is, you just keep doing it until eventually it settles. No one said you fake death threats! Exclamation point. Thanks, Bug Squander.
Then what is the allegation here with Brolos? I don't understand.
I don't know. I was explaining gay op or psyop. Yeah. So if I implied something that wasn't there, then
I don't understand what the criticism is. I can't like make a Twitter account that I sent maybe like 10 tweets from 20, like mocking Gamergators. Really? That just, I don't know.
Origin of Logo says, don't call Vosh and food shops my boys. They're your friends. They're your best friends. They're your road dogs. When it's lunchtime, you sit with them at lunch. And then Old Man Laundry says, until the association between Vosh and a candidate harms the candidate, insulating a candidate you value from a toxic goblin like Vosh is good, actually. So I get what you're saying. Not my call. Way above my pay grade. I'm just describing the utility of electoralism, and frankly, 90% of y'all don't even. Honestly, I think probably like a quarter of you probably won't even vote. I think 3/4 of you, because you are nerdy enough, will go vote. I think a quarter of you who enjoy this space, you just enjoy it for the drama, which, by the way, I do too. But I will vote. So, Vosh is everything wrong with the left distilled into a person.
I don't think that's true. I mean, I can't defend his stuff lately, but I think he's a smart guy. I mean, the sex stuff though. Ugh. But it's the central problem. It's the central problem with the left, like weird sex stuff. Like, that's not how I perceive the problem with the left.
Yeah. So I think Coomerism is a big problem with the left. I think pretending that everybody to the right of Bernie Sanders is a fascist is probably not great.
Yeah.
I think that, so for instance, you've been called a neo-fascist conservative recently.
All the time.
Yeah. So this is actually great for me and my reputation, because I am associating with a neo-fascist conservative. It's great. Brianna's rehabilitating my conservative image. It's awesome.
There we go.
So yeah, the weird sex stuff in the left is not the main thing, but it does go a little above and beyond a bit to start the world, or I think he's just saying that normies are turned off by it.
I fully agree. The best thing the trans movement could do is stop this like extreme, like sex first vibe they've got going on. I think I fully agree with this. I think Connor and I have talked about this on the show quite a bit.
Well, and then is a neo-fascist conservative basically a communist liberal? I mean, if you do think so, let's break this down real quick. Neo-fascist, so we believe in political corporatism and flexible authoritarianism. Conservatism, so we're trying to conserve the status quo. The status quo is statist. And then communist liberal. the status quo is also liberal, and then communism, according to libertarianism, is when the state does stuff. So yes, neo-fascist conservative is a communist liberal. I know that none of those terms are actually related to each other, but yes, you are correct. And then Christian Valeris is mogging us in chat because he will be voting. That's based. That's
Good
based
for
on
you.
voting.
I support voting. I'm going to vote too. What about you, Connor?
I will be voting. So some people press me on that. I will obviously not be voting for Donald Trump. I do think Biden is the preferred candidate. I think I will pick my nose or pinch my nose, excuse me, and vote for Biden. However, it is tough for
What is your
me.
objection to Biden, if I can ask?
I don't think I have much of a policy objection to Biden, except for I want him to be more muscular on the things that the left hates.
Yeah.
So for instance, like being stronger on the border, that's really, really it. I think with economics, he's kind of letting the policy wonks drive, which I also think is a good idea. I'm trying to think, but also, can you name like a big Biden accomplishment though?
I think the vaccine rollout was extremely, extremely good. I think people forget how chaotic that was under Trump. I think he stepped in. He got manufacturing cranked up to 11. I think he gave a system for all of that to get out. I think he, helped educate the public. I actually think he gets an A+ on that.
Yeah, and that's my thing. So we're talking about the vaccine rollout. That was kind of, I would say, in the beginning of his term. He's been tougher on the border, and then I can't name another like large policy thing. So when you're like, how is Biden doing? It's like, I'm happy that an old man sat in his chair and passed the required policies for the state to continue to perpetuate. That's good.
How about this? I'm not saying inflation is not bad right now, but it is also not just an American problem. So the inflation in the United States has gone down disproportionately here compared to other countries. And I don't think that's serendipitous. I think a lot of the Fed policy, and a lot of the stuff that he's done has actually been very effective at pushing back on inflation.
Well, and I even saw recently that Trump wants to slash interest rates. And basically that's what the Fed is saying is like, we can't do that right now because we've seen inflation stagnate but not go down as aggressively as we want to. And that's where I don't want a executive heavy Trump presidency to just flood the market with money and then boom, we're screwed again. So that's where I think listening to the experts is a little bit better.
So here's one, the CHIPS Act. Christian is bringing this up. I'm a little mixed on the CHIPS Act just because, as best as I can tell, there's no plan to bring in the tooling that we need to run fabs. So without that, it's so hard. I toured.
Is that domestic manufacturing of microprocessors?
Of silicon. So, and then if we don't have the fabs, the tooling, it makes it very difficult to do that. I think it's going to be good. I'm mixed on how effective it's going to be. I do think, generally speaking, we need to be investing more in domestic infrastructure. Like I toured a major company a few weeks ago, and they were talking about how like China is leading in the sector that they're working in. It forms a real national security emergency. I would much rather the CHIPS Act have gone to basically starting American businesses in that sector, but that's just me.
Well, the main criticisms in chat of Biden is just that he's elderly and his health doesn't seem to be supreme.
100% true.
I was joking about 2 years ago. I was like, they're going to have to duct tape him to a dolly and just roll him out and do like a Weekend at Bernie's kind of thing with Biden. And you know what? Here's the thing is like somebody was saying that he is the executive. Can y'all still hear and see me? Okay, cool. He is the executive. Somebody was saying that. So basically he needs to be strong enough in order to run the role. But the truth is, if he's injured or killed, this happened to Ronald Reagan as well. I think his Alzheimer's kicked in during his second term, and basically his administrators had to govern in his stead. So I don't, somebody said constitutional crisis. I think that one, that's why you have a vice president. Two, that's why you have an administration. So even if he was, God forbid, to pass in office, I still think the government would continue to function.
Yeah. No, I think that's really well said. So, Connor, I'm thinking, how much time do you have before you need to go? Is it a hard out? In
I
like
would
8
say
minutes?
it's not necessarily. What I would say is I need to use the restroom and get water before 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
And I also need to tell the wife that I'm not available, which I'm sure she will be very happy about.
Yes.
But
Well,
yeah,
let
8:30
me.
is basically my hard. 8:25 is my tentative.
I feel like I touched on this stuff with Chloe Segal, and I don't want to leave this where I've talked publicly about something and haven't kind of given the context for it. So, women in the game industry. Well, for people that don't know, Chloe Segal was a trans woman that set herself on fire and died really, really violently. And one of the things that happened in the lead up for this, and what Destiny mentioned in his manifesto, was that she had reached out to me asking me for help. At some point, she was talking about basically some basically she got busted saying she needed a major surgery. It ended up being GRS because she's a trans woman, and there were people that accused her of lying about that and it being a scandal. So if you go back on all of this, I generally, for any woman that's in the game industry, I try to network with her, right? Like give her a leg up, just be friendly. It's just my standard course of action. So I knew Chloe Segal. What happened though is she really had some mental illness that was affecting her from basically the first second that I knew her. And she started blowing up relationships with literally everybody in the game industry. She started leaking things from private groups that women in tech have in public. She started this kind of tweet fight with me. And what was happening behind the scenes is this trans woman is just getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And Connor, I don't know if you've ever had a friend that's like dealing with that level of mental health stuff, but you really have a choice to make. Like, can I intervene and be helpful? Or do I just stay away and not get enmeshed? So I had so many conversations with her, even after she had gone after me publicly, going, you need to get some mental health help. I'd sent friends over to her, just desperately trying to save her life. And it just got to a point where she had burned so many goddamn bridges that all me or anyone else could do was just step away and lead her to her own fate. So
This is the least compelling criticism of you that I have
sure.
personally, is like the loyalty to a fault to Keffels or other people in the industry who are toxic or whatever. I think that we were all raised with like a kindergarten morality to be empathetic to other people, particularly when they're in distress. And not only that, maybe I'm too empathetic, but I was always the kid that if there's a kid who's getting bullied or they're suicidal or they're on the outside and all that kind of stuff, I would always go out of my way to like try to be their friend to make sure that they had some kind of lifeline back into reality. And so what's unfortunate in the Twitch and YouTube political space is when you stick your neck out proverbially by just being friendly to somebody who's going through a terrible time, you are viewed as endorsing their bad behavior. And I don't think that is, one, I don't think that's the case. Two, I think the world becomes worse when people like you and me who are trying to just give people like a life raft on to cling to. I think the world is a worse place when we are hesitant or afraid to do so.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly it. And something that makes it really hard, not to go after Kuihman, but when you're a public
You should just
figure,
swear off everybody all the time. Just the second they fuck up, just turn on them, turn them into piranha, throw them in the wood chipper and rip them up.
It's not even that. It's that now when I interact with people, it is so frustrating because I have to run it through this lens of, you know, is someone going to see this? How is someone going to take this joke? Because, you know, like a comment to Keffels, like, do all the cocaine that you want, is going to lead to a 20-minute discussion and someone attacking me in a YouTube video. It is not surprising that so many public figures are highly, highly messaged. Like, something is different about me is if you tweet at me, I'm going to tweet back at you, right? So, you know, I've kind of made this calculation at some point in my career that I'm going to try to be authentic to myself. It just constantly leads me to these situations because it feels like you're constantly playing to an audience. The Richard Hania thing that I did last week, right? I thought this was wildly successful. Right. I went on his show. I think I got to agree on a lot of points about trans healthcare to a right-wing audience. You know, we were friendly to each other. We were civil. This is me doing my job well, which is to advocate for public policy and to get buy-in from people. And, you know I'm going to get attacked by people like, oh, Brianna's a Nazi. Oh, Brianna is like, by me just talking to him, I've endorsed everything he's ever said. And it's just, Conor, it's a fucking exhausting way to live.
Well, yeah, but then this is the great thing about quote unquote the right wing. So the great thing about the right wing is they don't view conflict or heterodox opinion. Well, I mean, fascists do, but besides fascists, except for fascists, pretty much every other right-wing faction values conflict, and even fascists to a certain extent do. And the reason why is because like conflict breeds innovation and resolution and all that kind of stuff. And also like if it's hierarchical, and if you're not good enough to compete, then that kind of means that there's like a skill issue that you have to work on. And the reason why I'm saying all that is because Richard Hania or whatever,
I need to pronounce his name. Yeah,
a shitload of the right wing is by instinct. Well, they're also by instinct libertarian. Yeah. So you leave me alone, I leave you alone. So if you frame things in that moral framework, they're gonna already be leaning towards you. And then two, if you frame things in like a painful experience that you had to overcome, they will typically be sympathetic or empathetic to that. And then finally, if you're curious about them, even if you disagree on a shitload of politics, if you understand that worldview, that is already so much better than a majority of the left that they will often see you as a friend just for understanding their perspective.
If I've learned anything about the right wing, it's that they desperately want to be heard by the left. They are so eager for conversation. It is insane, which is like, it is so easy to get invited on these right-wing shows. It's just crazy. So I don't know. There's such an opportunity here for us to just talk to each other. Yeah.
Think about how, like, maybe this is just me being an asshole and sweeping for some more of my friends. But I feel like Toftage is like one of the best trans representations ever.
Sure.
Because not only, is she a passoid, but also she's a fan of dissident right-wing theory. So she like reads esoteric right-wing treatises on like far-right political thought. And then she'll have conversations and debates with like the furthest, most extreme neo-monarchist, neo-fascist, whatever people, and she'll be able to speak their language. And I have to say, while those people will likely be talking about how they need to actually enact a trans genocide or they actually need to rip away trans healthcare, they will pause when interacting with Toftage because she's such an interesting, incisive, creative, intelligent person.
She's so funny. She doesn't get credit for that, in my view.
Well, and for me, she has probably done more to improve trans representation in the dissident right than any level of like BuzzFeed woke scold bullshit.
So, but this is the problem. Like, trans people just will not allow someone on the. Sorry about my voice. It's really giving out tonight. They won't allow someone on the right to even exist, right? And I keep thinking like about this term, the trans community. The trans community. There's no trans community. It's just this fringe, progressive, communist, like agree with us or get canceled mob. And I just
Do you know what the
like,
trans community is to me though?
what?
It's 8 gals, some trans and some cis, talking shit about other women in a Discord. That to me, that's
would
the
be
real trans community.
That
And I
would be
think it's
amazing.
funny. I think it's funny that Kuihman's like, oh, you put up this big game about, trans solidarity and how you're advocating in political interest and this, that, the other. But then you go behind trans women's backs and you talk shit about them. And I'm like, that's like the most girly shit I've ever fucking heard. That sounds like the most normal thing that's come out of the online trans community. So why are you complaining?
You've
That's
also
base.
got to understand. I mean this so genuinely. Claire is somebody that I adore. I absolutely love Claire. I would do anything for Claire. Jenny is amazing, right?
Mhm.
Like, it's not like these are just randos. These are people that I really, really genuinely care about. And I talk to every single day, and they're very important in my life. So, yeah, the fact that we're telling jokes that are getting us in
And
trouble,
being mean,
yeah.
God forbid.
Oh my goodness, that's
Yeah,
so terrible.
well, and by the way, I know Kuihman would not take this comment lying down, but getting criticism of you're too mean to other trans gals as a trans representative yourself from the commentary community is fucking insane.
Yeah, that's
Like that.
crazy.
That to me is the weakest shit. But I do want to. I want to address this comment.
Yeah.
So
Kuihman's
Jerry,
videos get 1K views. You should ignore losers like him. I mean, I have to admit, Conor, this is what made me really pause with having him on tonight, because he's gonna drama frog it,
that so here's the thing. I think that it all depends on how you see it, and not only that, Kuihman might get 1 to 3K with the occasional video that pops off, but the truth is he's consistent.
Yeah.
And not only is he consistent, but his live, he does drama content just like everybody else. And his live, he gets 250 live viewers, 400 live viewers, that kind of stuff. And so for me, if I see somebody who's only started streaming in the past 6 months to a year, I think he's only been full-time for the past 6 months to a year. If you're breaking 250 to 400 within your first 6 months,
Sure.
then it's only a matter of time before the algorithm picks up with you. And also, I'm not picking him for his numbers. I'm picking him because he is the most abrasive, autistic commentary person I know. He's one of the most unpleasant and aggressive human beings I know.
Yeah.
So while this conversation was painful at times, I also think that it's, from my perspective anyways, I can sympathize with the fact that his video was hyperbolic in some places. He was willing to admit that it was hyperbolic in some places. He held your feet to the fire on half a dozen to a dozen comments, but you held your ground and you stuck with it, and you didn't rage quit or leave. And by the way, this is the other thing that that comment doesn't address. A lot of people are scared to have their feet held to the fire, and I think audiences hold you in higher regard when you're willing to deal with your most vocal critics. So I still think there's value.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I think what is frustrating is that's a game you can't win, right? And the fact that he kept talking over me and cutting me off, right? Like I don't mind having discussions about any of this stuff in good faith. I'll give you a really good example. Dev, I don't think he'll mind me saying this, Short Fat Otaku, he saw the exact same Jesse gender thing that we were talking about in the clip. He's like, whoa, Bree, what's going on here? Are you saying you're running cover? I'm like, Dev, here's the screenshot. Here's what we were talking about. He's like, oh, okay, got it. So do you know what I mean? I don't mind answering those questions in good faith. It's that when it's like looking for more ammo to attack you with, like, where can that go, right?
Well, maybe I'm maybe I'm trying to force you to go through the trial by fire that I experienced, because I had a peaceable conversation with Demon Mama, despite us agreeing on almost nothing. And she was very much known for, at the time, being one of the most abrasive people in the space. And then also Mr. Girl. This was before Mr. Girl turned on Destiny, and he was kind of like, he was in like attack mode. He was in like drama attack mode, and he always liked to talk about like the meta conversations that were going on. And I was able to have a peaceable conversation with him. So it is tough. It does suck. It does suck getting your your drag through the coals. But I think ultimately,
it's not that tough for me. I've been doing this for a decade. Like I'll forget about this by tomorrow, right? So
I won't.
Oh my gosh. Other comments here. And I'm sorry I'm so hoarse, guys. Hopefully it will be better after this summer. The LGBTQ community is a made-up community which does not exist. There's no physical. What do you expect? Like there's a LGBTQ
we're going to make a gay commune. Yeah, it's called San Francisco Bud 123. That's what it's called.
That actually is it. I don't know if I agree with this. I think it's really true that there's very limited solidarity between these groups, and there's trauma and meanness to everyone involved. There's a really famous book called Conflict is Not Abuse that I love on this, which is just about how everybody in the gay community is super mean to each other. So.
Well, yeah, and I would say even if you wanted to like break it up or whatever, lesbian, gay, bi, obviously those are like, sexuality, sexual preferences. Trans, obviously that's going to have its own challenges, and then queer as well is going to have its own challenges. So I think that the solidarity comes
Q
from.
Deserves there. That's a whole nother thing. I don't understand. What
I think Q is an umbrella term. So
what is? Okay, hold on. I want to talk about this. What is the public policy need that Q needs that LGB and T does not? I've never had that question answered.
This gets into like they fab territory where like, I start to get really
policy that they fabs need that's not covered by trans.
Compelled pronouns for she, they pronouns with a septum piercing. Listen, I only have memes for you. The reason why I only have memes for you is because like I'm not particularly passionate about Q. LGBT, I just think you need to be chill. You just need to be chill. Yeah. You need to treat people like people. And that's it. And that's about as far as we need to go. And they need to be able to live their lives without, without governmental punishment or extra governmental punishment.
Conor, are you into Warhammer Fantasy? What does this mean? Is this a slash genre?
So it's actually interesting. I was starting to research this today because the next Hammer and Bolter episode breakdown, which we're not going to get to tonight, unfortunately, it'll probably get released a day late, is a Age of Sigmar episode. So there are fantasy, meaning that it's set more in like the Lord of the Rings medieval Renaissance time period rather than in 40,000 years into the future. I'm not into Warhammer Fantasy, but I know the real-time strategy game that Henry Cavill plays. I think it's Total War. I know everybody thinks that game is phenomenal. I know a lot of people love the lore of the old world. I know a lot of people don't like Age of Sigmar, which is the new version of fantasy. But I have found redeeming stories and characters and narratives and themes in Age of Sigmar. For instance, y'all should go check out my Hammer and Bolter breakdown of, I forget the episode's name, but it has Hannah Vertol in it, who is a witch hunter who hunts some vampires and some Skaven in that episode. It's fantastic.
All right, what else do we got here?
The other show was actually pushed back a week, so I don't have a hard out, but I probably, for the sake of helping my wife, I want to do another 5 minutes, and then I probably want to dip.
Yeah, that sounds good. My voice is terrible anyway, so I'm probably difficult to listen to. All right.
Ad libitum says, but that breaks the communist coalition building they have been doing for decades. It weakens the whole structure. Yeah, but I think if Rob Noor and MAGA people don't want to accept my claim of Burkean conservatism, I think that everyone would acknowledge that I am a centrist. And if you are a centrist, you don't want the fringe to have substantive political power. So if this like new relationship breaks up the socialist communist command of internet politics, then that's a good thing for me.
I love it. All right, why don't we leave it there, man?
Yeah. Okay, sounds great. Then Arm Slave Slayer says, not a centrist. What do you want from me? What do you want? Like, Jonah boy, you're late. So, sorry, real quick before we go. Somebody says, where is Kuihman? And Jonah boy says, sup, guys. We've already been live for 2.5 hours. We're wrapping up. If you want to watch Kuihman be abrasive and unpleasant to Brianna while we try to work through some stuff, you can rewind the VOD. And yeah, anything you want to say to folks before we wrap up?
I am really going to miss y'all while I'm on break. I hope I can come back sooner rather than later, but it will be a good investment in me being able to continue communicating with people. So, yeah, we'll see how fast I heal.
Yep. All right. Parasocial love to the roughly 80 people who are hanging out with us tonight. I appreciate you. Have a beautiful evening. Catch you in the next one. Bye for now.
Yeehaw.